Chapter 171. However, just let it be. When you don't care about others, you naturally don't have to care about how others think of you in their hearts, although this other person is the person you will get along with day and night in the future. However, even if it was a transfer of affection, there were some things that she actually benefited from. Jingwan was never a heartless person. As long as he didn't cross her bottom line, then as long as he treated her well, as long as he didn't treat her particularly badly, she could be a good wife. Moreover, the feelings that she reciprocated might not necessarily be love. Obviously, what happened just now had stimulated this living hell. Now, he was holding her tightly and wouldn't let go. Jingwan obediently let him hold her. Putting aside the fact that he occasionally made people feel ashamed and resentful, purely as a lover, this person was really impeccable. What's more, he was so hot that he let people see the scene. At this moment, Jingwan didn't care about being held. Moreover, if this could make him less terrifying and let him be comforted, Jingwan would accept it if he took advantage of her. However, was the one in his heart already gone? Thinking about it, according to this person's temperament and power, if it wasn't the separation of life and death, how could it be called lost and left? There was a saying that the living could never compete with the dead. Jingwan was glad that she didn't think of competing, otherwise she didn't know what kind of virtue she would have made. Jingwan continued to stroke his back to comfort him and didn't say a word. Under the premise of not understanding the situation, it was often wrong to say more. Jingwan didn't want to be the understanding flower. However, it was a certain someone who knew the essence of taking a mile after taking an inch. When he found that his panic and weakness made Jingwan's heart soften, he hugged her and let go. With a hot start, he became unscrupulous. Except for his hands that didn't go too far. His mouth didn't stop. Jingwan was fine. She was not injured or sick in his arms. Even if the fear in her heart were still there, the reason that she almost lost gradually came back. Seeing that they had been seen, there was no difference whether it was once or many times. As the culprit who caused her to be like this, naturally, she had to make up for it. Therefore, a certain someone was well versed in playing the blame game. Even if Jingwan was dizzy from his kiss and did not notice it for a while, because she was worried about his condition, she always maintained a bit of rationality. After a long time, it was difficult for her not to notice his condition. Well, he could be said to be insatiable. Other than him, there was no one else. Therefore, she should not be soft-hearted to this kind of person. Would a person like him be fragile? Why would he need someone to comfort him? Stop joking. Therefore, Jingwan did not hesitate to pinch his waist. In any case, it wasn't the first time he had offended his superiors, and he didn't seem to do anything about it. This bad habit was also caused by him. Jingwan's realization was something worth celebrating for a certain someone. This could be considered a historical improvement. Li Hongyuan was suddenly pinched. Even if his skin was rough and his flesh was thick, Jingwan did not really want to kill him. It would still hurt. She even deliberately hissed twice to gain sympathy. Before Jingwan could realize whether it was true or not, she subconsciously removed her strength. He grabbed her hand on his waist, leaned his forehead against hers, and laughed in a low voice. "Kind darling, are you feeling sorry for me?" The words, "kind darling," evoked the pain in Jingwan's heart. She pushed him away with a dark face. She would rather face that guy who was like the dark devil than face this shameless bastard who took the opportunity to tease her. "You are really heartless. You throw me away after using me." Jingwan gritted her teeth and looked at him. "No one will think you are mute if you don't speak." Li Hongyuan could not help but want to touch her face again. This time, Jingwan quickly blocked him. Li Hongyuan was not angry. He still smiled seductively. "You seem to be in good spirits. Seems that you are not frightened." Jingwan paused. Her face was a little pale. Her lips moved, but she did not say anything. Li Hongyuan took the opportunity to kiss her again. "Li Hongyuan." Jingwan could not help but explode. Then she realized the current situation. This bastard. Sure enough, it is better this way. This time it is my fault. I promise that these clowns will not appear in front of you again. Also, don't be afraid of me. From a bit of teasing to an indescribably gentle and affectionate. When you go back, drink a bowl of calming soup and then sleep. Forget about this. If he held it tightly and did not mention it, he might forget. It might also take root in his heart and sprout in the future. It was better to open it up now and tell her that it was nothing. Tell her that she did not need to care. He did not know how she endured the first time she killed someone in her previous life. In short, it must not have felt good. He did not know whether the impact of killing someone for the first time was greater, or the impact of seeing someone else kill someone for the first time was greater. He did not know. Those had all happened in his previous life. It had been too long, and he had long forgotten such small things. He clearly knew that she was watching. He clearly knew that he might scare her, but he still did it without hesitation. Perhaps it was not only because of extreme anger and fear, but also because he wanted to let her see the complete him. If he was willing, he could let her see only the good side of him. If he was not complete, no matter how perfect he was, it would still be a lie and a lie. So, Won, don't be afraid of me. Your fear and resistance will make me do things that are out of my control. I might even hurt you. That will take my life. And when I die, I will definitely drag you down with me. As for the wrong place, it was probably giving them the opportunity to hurt her. Fortunately, she was fine. Otherwise, Li Hongyuan would definitely not care about anything and immediately exterminate the Ruan clan, flay some people, pull out their tendons, grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Looking at her for a moment, he tilted his head, the gentleness in his eyes disappeared without a trace. Yu Zhongqing, send her back. If there is even the slightest mishap, bring your head to see me. The Imperial Guard commander did not dare to neglect and hurriedly appeared, asking Wang Ye to rest assured. Regardless of whether Jin Qinhuang wanted to send him away or for other reasons, with his valiant skills, his bodyguards were also not bad. He really did not need protection. Moreover, this kind of temporary assassination, there should not be a second time. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan again. You go back first, I will deal with the matters here. Remember today's assassination, you were only implicated by Ben Wang. As for the person behind the scenes, Ben Wang will definitely get to the bottom of it. This person was like this. One moment he was still flirting and the next moment he was deadpan. Everything he did was for you, making you lose your temper. If you really insisted on being angry with him, in the end, you would probably be the only one angry. So she nodded. Wang Ye, be careful. Li Hongyuan nodded. Don't worry, Ben Wang has not married you yet. Jingwan directly ignored him. Brushing past him, she directly left. Unlike when she came, she was leisurely and unhurriedly, as if she wanted to quickly avoid him, this god of pestilence. It could be seen that Li Hongyuan's shameless healing method was really very effective. However, in the end, would Jingwan appease him more, or would he appease Jingwan more? This was really hard to say. Jingwan's maid quickly put away the things and followed. Before the Imperial Guard commander left with the Imperial Guards, he naturally had to salute Li Hongyuan. With Jingwan's departure, the coldness on his body once again returned. He looked at the commander. Yu Zhongqing, you are a smart person. What should be said, what should not be said. You shouldn't need Ben Wang to teach you. You have meritorious service in killing the assassins today. Ben Wang will ask Fu Huang for meritorious service. This was originally our duty. We do not deserve any meritorious service. Meritorious service should be rewarded. Wrongdoing should be punished. This is heaven's law and earth's principle. Yu Zhongqing's breathing stopped. His heart a little bitter. He just followed the powerless Wang Ye out for a stroll. How could he let him see things that he shouldn't see? Even if it was the emperor, for the sake of the lives of these brothers that he brought out. He also couldn't say things that shouldn't be said. Isn't you Darren thinking too much? Ben Wang is talking about the Luo family's 3rd Mississippi. Well, this was what he should care about. He didn't care what he shouldn't care about. Also, it couldn't be said that he shouldn't care. It should be that this kind of thing no one would casually talk about it. They were the Imperial Guards, not gossipy women. Besides, That was Jin Qinhuang's private matter that couldn't be more private. Letting the Luo family's third miss be frightened, it is our dereliction of duty. Since that's the case, hurry up and catch up. Yes. From afar, he watched as Jingwan followed the original path and passed by the stream. It looked unusually simple and relaxed. However, Li Hongyuan licked his lips. Did his little sweetheart know what he had done with his red lips that anyone with a discerning eye could tell? Li Hongyuan looked at the grilled fish stuck in the ground. He casually picked one up, looked at it, took a bite and tasted it. At this time it hadn't turned cold yet and the taste was actually not bad. In the eyes of the people around him, his daily food couldn't be more particular. However, at this moment, he chewed on the small fish other than the head, along with the fish bones, and ate it completely. That posture was no different from his usual eating. Eunuch Mu lowered his eyes and thought, well, the master really likes Miss Luo. It's really deep in his bones. Muan, take the remaining 2 fish back. Yes. Mu Gonggong hurriedly responded. There was no convenient thing to hold, so he carefully held it in his hands. These were not 2 grilled fish, but the most delicious thing in the world. Bring the head and Ben Wang. As usual, send it to Ruan Fengfei. Li Hongyuan said. The guards were stunned. Did Master mean that these 3 people were sent by Master's future concubine? Yes, judging from their last actions, they knew that they were obviously here for the future concubine. They all knew that the master of the Ruan family was fond of, so it was not strange that she sent people. However, although they had long known that there was a problem in the backyard of the Ruan family, today was the first time that they had a real confrontation. They were stronger than expected. Although they were all ordinary guards except for the leader, they should not be worse than the secret guards of other families. However, in a one-on-one situation, they were no match for the other party. However, wasn't it a bit arbitrary to conclude just because of this? In an instant they threw this idea out. How could Master judge wrongly? Even if it was wrong, then whoever he said would be the one. Even if it wasn't Ruan Fengfei, it had to be her. Ordinary methods couldn't be used to plant people in the backyard of the Ruan family, so Master didn't continue to use other methods. As for more, it was not something they could know. What Master wanted to know they could know. Even if they knew, they would rot in their stomachs. But they should never inquire about things they didn't know. However, this as usual. According to what? In the end, it was still an E who understood in an instant. The maid from the Dragon Boat Festival. Send people to the front. Li Hongyuan understated his order. Hearing his words, sure enough in Master's heart, only the Luo family's third miss was a treasure. If they dared to touch her, they would have to be prepared to bear the most tragic fate. However, Master only needed to say a word, but their subordinates had to run around until their legs broke. It would be best if they did it well, but if they didn't, then they were incompetent fools. However, it was really not that easy to do this matter now. Along the way, people were together. Not only were there the guards of each family, there were also the imperial guards. The security was extremely tight, and the possibility of being discovered was very high. But there was no other way. That woman's brain was sick. She had to provoke Master at this time, causing them to be implicated. This time, if they didn't properly teach her how to behave, it would be hard to make up for the pain of being oppressed by their master. Approaching, Jingwan used a brocade handkerchief to cover her mouth. She couldn't see it, but that didn't mean she couldn't feel it. There was a slight tingling sensation. It could be seen how ruthless a certain beast's bite was. Jingwan suddenly stopped, turned around, and looked at Yu Zhongqing. A man who wasn't even 30 years old. His facial features were also very handsome. As the commander of the Imperial Guards, he was the head of the 3rd rank. Moreover, this man was said to be unmarried and was also one of the capital's golden bachelors. Yu Darren, regarding matters involving my daughter, please do not speak about it later. Yu Zhongqing understood her meaning. Miss Luo, please rest assured. Many thanks. Jing Wan squatted. Mrs. Too serious. Jean Wang was famous for being fond of beauties. The beauties by his side changed again and again. They had all heard of his so-called great favor, but they had never seen the specifics. They all said that he was affectionate and fickle, never truly stopping for any woman. What they saw today, they were afraid that they hadn't seen it. At least, he was very attentive to his current fiancée. And Jingwon, through the previous matter, could be concluded that she wasn't delicate and weak, and her courage was also outstanding. The marks on Jingwon's body weren't obvious, but they weren't difficult to find. For example, old Madame Luo immediately noticed her condition. She was so shocked that she immediately got up and hurried forward. Wan, what happened? Jingwon timely showed a bit of panic. Grandmother, we encountered an assassin. What? Not only old Madame Luo, everyone present was shocked. Wan, what happened? Not waiting for Jingwon to answer, Lu Chengdi's furious voice came from the other side. Yu Zhongqing, where is Jin Wang? These people came back, but his son and his son's guards were gone. Replying to the emperor, the assassins have been executed. Wang Ye is fine. Wang Ye said that he would stay to check the situation and ordered this subordinate to escort Miss Luo back. Check the situation. Asking a Wang Ye to do it, what are you doing? Emperor, please forgive me. Wang Ye ordered this. This subordinate doesn't dare to disobey. Yu Zhongqing's words made Lu Chengdi speechless. Immediately send people back. Emperor, Wang Ye is back. Lu Chengdi's guard reminded. Sure enough, Jin Wang walked in unhurriedly with 2 people. That undisciplined virtue made Lu Chengdi so angry that he almost flipped the chessboard on the table. When Li Hongyuan walked in, evil creature. I just took some time to wash the blood off my body and came back a bit late. How did I offend Fu Huang? Li Hongyuan looked at Lu Chengdi as if he was looking at an unreasonable person. Lu Chengdi's veins on his forehead jumped. This evil creature, this evil creature. Lu Chengdi tried to calm his anger. After a while he asked, what happened? You ask Yu Zhongqing. Ken is going to change clothes. Just as he was about to leave, his eyes fell on Jingwen. Then he said to old Madame Luo, Old Madam, this is Ben Wang's fault. It's just that the assassins appeared so suddenly that Miss Luo might be a bit frightened. Before she accidentally fell down. It seems that there is a little bruise on her face. Help her apply some medicine and boil a bowl of calming soup. Many thanks to Wang Ye. After that, Li Hongyuan left and Jingwon was taken away by old Madame Luo. Yu Zhongqing briefly described the process of the matter. Li Hongyuan didn't bring all of his people back. Then, this matter was probably being dealt with. Lu Chengdi thought for a moment and didn't send anyone else. Since it was an assassin, then the only place that could leave clues was on them. His evil creature son wasn't stupid. Would he not search? Old Madame Luo saw Jingwon's lips. How could she not know? After being annoyed, she could only sigh helplessly and didn't say anything. Instead, she asked about the assassins in detail. In fact, Jingwon only participated in that thrilling short period of time. She really didn't know more than that. After thinking about it, Jingwon didn't say that she suspected that the assassins were targeting her. The only one who had a big grudge against her was probably Ruan Fengfei. However, she was a young lady who lived in seclusion. How could she be so capable? If she could really do this, Jingwon would suspect her origin. Li Hongyuan didn't appear again after that. However, Lu Chengdi wasn't in the mood to continue playing chess, so he didn't leave. The remaining people, led by an E, finally came back. What did you find? Lu Chengdi asked bluntly with a sullen face. An E pretended to hesitate and then took out an object. It was a token less than 3 fingers wide. Seeing that thing, Lu Chengdi's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. It was something that belonged to the rebels. They were descendants of the royal family of the previous dynasty. Since the establishment of the Qi Yuan, he was already the 5th emperor. However, this group of people was like a group of strong rats. No matter how hard he tried, they wouldn't die. Every once in a while they would jump out. What they liked to do most was to assassinate the royal family members. As long as they were related to the royal family, they would seize the opportunity to take a bite or two. However, this group of people hadn't appeared for many years. How could Lu Chengdi not be angry when they appeared again? However, this group of people was too cunning. No matter what he wanted to investigate now, he wouldn't get any results. Lu Chengdi left in a huff. Then, the Luo family finally quieted down. This matter was suppressed by Lu Chengdi, so as not to make people panic. When it was close to noon, everyone began to cook. For a while, the aroma filled the air. Ah! A scream broke the peace and tranquility. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653162. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bicken.com. Mobile version reading URL. Bicken. Chapter 172. The voice came from the Ruan family. Something had indeed happened to the Ruan family. To be exact, something had happened to Ruan Fengfei. It was said that Miss Ruan was feeling unwell due to the extreme heat. She didn't sleep well last night and took a nap in the carriage. It was also said that she didn't like to have people by her side when she was sleeping. In her deep sleep, she felt something strange and thought that it was a servant girl who came to see her. She casually asked but didn't get any answer. Thus, she opened her eyes in displeasure and then, what she saw was 3 hanging bloody heads. Her hair was disheveled and her entire face was like that of her servant girl on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. Other than the eyes, there wasn't a single place that was intact. Even the eyelids were cut off and the eyeballs were protruding. Not to mention that she saw at the moment she opened her eyes in a small space, even if it was at other times, even if someone described the specific situation and was mentally prepared, it was very likely that she would be frightened when she saw it again. On the day of the Dragon Boat Festival, Ruan Fengfei was looking for abuse. She ran to see the dead servant girl and was severely frightened. Later, she was injured and her face was injured. In the first few days, she even had a mental breakdown. When she finally got better, she was ruthlessly provoked by Li Hongyuan. Then rumors flew everywhere. Unknowingly, it made the Ruan family have opinions about her. Naturally, she didn't have a good day. Ruan Fengfei broke down and screamed in the carriage. Because the heads were hanging low and close to her, there was clearly a certain distance between them, but she couldn't pass through and leave this extremely terrifying place. She shivered and curled up into a ball. That appearance was as pitiful as it could be. Her screams naturally attracted the people of the Ruan family. They hurriedly climbed into the carriage and opened the curtain. In the end, the servant girl also screamed and scrambled back. Then, she fell out of the carriage in an unusually sorry state. The people behind also vaguely saw the situation inside. Who still dared to go up? The other masters, led by Ruan Ruizhong, quickly rushed over and heard Ruan Fengfei's mournful and desperate screams. What happened? Ruan Ruizhong's face was as black as water. It seemed that since the Dragon Boat Festival, everything in the Ruan family was not going well, and the root of it all revolved around Ruan Fengfei. No matter how stable and calm he was, he felt mentally and physically exhausted, and it was difficult for him to smile. Master, human heads in the carriage, there are 3 human heads hanging. Ruan Fengfei's mother, on the other hand, was the first to react. She rushed up and pulled open the curtains. Although she couldn't see the front of the heads, she was certain that they were human heads, especially when they were dripping with blood. As for her daughter, she was tightly stuck to the innermost corner. At this moment, as a mother, her eyes turned red. Her face revealed a frightening viciousness. She took a deep breath and entered the carriage with a rather capable posture. With a wave of her hand, she pulled down the 3 heads and then reached out to hug Ruan Fengfei. Ruan Fengfei was shocked and scared. She punched and kicked. Madame Ruan comforted her while holding her up. However, when he stood up, his body paused for a moment, as if he had no strength to continue. She carried her daughter out unsteadily. Just as she stepped out of the door, her legs went soft and she almost fell. Ruan Ruizhong saw her face as pale as paper. Her body was clearly trembling, but she still held her daughter tightly. His eyes turned red and his heart ached. He hurried forward, wanting to personally carry her. However, he was already a pile of old bones. Not only did he not manage to catch her, his body tilted and he was directly pressed to the ground. Only then did the others react. They rushed forward in a flurry. It was unknown if it was because they were so scared that their hands and feet went soft. After a long time, not only did they not manage to get her up, they even made a mess. What a motherly love! This woman is really good at pretending. If I didn't know her true face, I'm afraid I would have been deceived by her. After watching the good show, he turned around and left. It wasn't easy for them to settle down properly. Ruan Fengfei was a bit deranged. She was knocked unconscious. Her mother also fainted from shock. As for Ruan Ruizhong, his waist was injured. This matter was naturally reported to Lu Qingdi as soon as possible. Lu Qingdi was still angry because of the assassination attempt on Li Hongyuan. Now that such a thing happened, how could he not be shocked? On one hand, he sent an imperial physician. On the other hand, he had Yu Zhongqing and the Minister of Justice go to the scene to investigate. Everything close to the carriage was all moved away. No one dared to take a step closer. It was clearly a sunny day, but the lonely carriage gave people a strange and gloomy feeling. Fortunately, the people who came were not ordinary. The curtains on the door and windows were hung up. The scene inside could be seen clearly. There were 3 heads scattered at the bottom of the carriage. Only one of them was facing upwards and could be seen clearly. At that moment, even people who were used to seeing corpses and limbs couldn't help but take a step back. They let out 2 turbid breaths before stepping forward. The Minister of Justice gestured to one of his subordinates. That person nodded and walked closer. However, he didn't rush up. Instead, he carefully looked around, including the edges of the carriage. Then he stood by the window and looked inside carefully. He frowned slightly. Then, he got into the carriage and checked the 3 heads without changing his expression. During this process, the Minister of Justice remained silent. Yu Zhongqing also stood quietly by his side. When that person got down from the carriage, he said, "Sir, the person who did this did it very cleanly. Except for the inside of the carriage, there are no traces of blood. The 3 people, except for their eyes and ears, are unrecognizable. The openings are very neat. Can be seen that when they did this, they were very clean. In addition, their faces were scratched after they died. The blood should have been splashed later. It's not certain if it's human blood." After a pause, he continued, "If I'm not wrong, the person who scratched the faces should be the same person who killed the female corpse on the Dragon Boat Festival. Is this true? But didn't you say that the female corpse was scratched when she was alive? There should be a big difference. How do you know? Many people have their own little habits. The wounds are very similar." The murderer for the Dragon Boat Festival incident was not found at all. Of course, that incident happened in the capital and was not under his jurisdiction. Logically speaking, today's incident should not be under his jurisdiction either. However, in this convoy he was the only one who was in charge of criminal cases. Because the murderer for the Dragon Boat Festival couldn't be found, naturally, no one knew the reason. Everyone guessed that the servant girl saw something shady. However, this speculation was still puzzling. If the murderer of the 2 cases was really the same person or the same group of people, then the previous guess might be overturned. After all, the common point of the 2 cases seemed to be the youngest daughter of the first wife of the Grand Secretary. But what was the reason? First, investigate the identities of these 3 people and see if they are from the convoy. Yes. The 3 heads on the carriage had been taken down. Yu Zhongqing glanced at them. However, he inadvertently saw a small red mole on the earlobe of one of the heads. His eyes couldn't help but shrink. Because in the previous assassination there was one person who had such a mole, the person whose head was cut off by Jin Qinhuang. Yu Zhongqing didn't believe that this was a coincidence. Moreover, the face was covered in blood. Only the ears were clean. If he remembered correctly, the ears of the female corpse on the Dragon Boat Festival were all cut off. Yu Zhongqing's hair was somewhat numb. He always felt that this was simply left for him to see. Yu Zhongqing's hand that was holding the knife at his waist couldn't help but tighten. After investigating, he quickly discovered that the Ruan family was missing 3 guards. Yu Zhongqing's palm pressed against his forehead, his brows tightly knitted. If these 3 people were really from the Ruan family and really assassinated Jin Qinhuang, no, it should be the 3 assassins of the Luo family's 3rd young lady, and Jin Qinhuang secretly sent them back and specifically targeted the Ruan family's young lady. Didn't this mean that Jin Qinhuang knew the whole story from the beginning? The reason he did this, perhaps it could be seen as for the person he cared about. In fact, these could not be mentioned for the time being. The key point was that the guards of the Ruan family were actually stronger than the Imperial guards and the Qinhuang's guards. This was a big problem. It should be known that the guards of the general officials were only relatively strong ordinary people. In addition, Jin Qinhuang knew the identities of these 3 people but planted it on the rebel thieves. From the beginning, he cut off everyone's idea of finding the assassins in the convoy. He knew that there was a problem with the Ruan family but did not reveal it. Why was that? And the reason why Yu Zhongqing thought that it was framing and not suspecting that the rebel thieves were in the Ruan family was because he was also present when the 3 assassins were searched. He even personally did it. There was clearly nothing. Then, how could the people by Jin Qinhuang's side have the rebel thieves' token and carry it with them? One question after another, it was also one secret after another. The more you know, the faster you will die, or... Yu Zhongqing thought of Jin Qinhuang, who was like a death god and had a splitting headache. He inadvertently knew some things and then was forced to know more. Even if Jin Qinhuang wanted to win him over, wasn't his courage a bit too big? He didn't let him express his position at all and let him know even more things. Was he really not afraid that he would report it to the emperor? The red mole on the earlobe was considered a good sign. These 3 people were identified as people of the Ruan family. As for where their corpses were, how did their heads end up on Ruan Fengfei's head? The first question was unsolvable. He sent people to the vicinity to search, but there was nothing. They also didn't see any place that resembled the crime scene. He just gave up like that. Who let them be just 3 servants? It was simply not worth the trouble. As for the second question, he asked a lot of people. There were 3 people who said that they were knocked unconscious and didn't see anything. The others didn't even see a ghost. Yu Zhongqing looked at the forest in the distance. He clearly said that there were 3 assassins. Why didn't anyone connect the 2? Why didn't anyone mention going there to take a look? In the end, it was only because they were 3 guards. Their lives were cheap. If they were replaced by 3 people of high status, he was afraid that they would have already gone to look for them. Yu Zhongqing spat out a mouthful of turbid air. In the end, he didn't say anything. He also cherished his life. He was also selfish. He didn't live for himself alone. It must be said that old Madame Ruan was pretending to faint. When her people told her the details of the matter, she clenched her fists and her nails almost sunk into her flesh. Jin Qinhuang. Was it also him on the Dragon Boat Festival? Fengfei had always been steady. How could she do such a thing this time? However, looking at her in nearly a month's time, not only was her face disfigured, but she was also like a rat crossing the street. Being forced to do such a thing, there was no way to blame her. However, there were some things that she didn't dare to confirm. If the person hidden in the dark was really Jin Qinhuang, then this hidden enemy was much more terrifying than expected. She wasn't his opponent at all. Jingwan looked fine on the surface, but after all, it was the first time she saw such a scene. She couldn't completely recover in a short time. After drinking the calming soup, She took advantage of the fact that they weren't on the road and slept for a while in the carriage. Gong Mama and the wet nurse took turns fanning her. As for the several servant girls, Jingwon also let them drink the calming soup and sleep for a while. They slept well, but old Madame Luo ordered not to disturb her, so they missed lunch. However, it didn't matter. She didn't have an appetite. After waking up, she just casually made some simple cushions. A few of the servant girls woke up before her and looked to be in good spirits. In fact, they were mainly frightened by the terrifying aura on Li Hongyuan's body. When they saw the bloody scene, they immediately looked away. It didn't affect them much. After all, Li Hongyuan was a living person and didn't specifically target them. When his aura dissipated, it didn't leave them with a psychological shadow. At this moment, they quickly prepared food for Jingwon. Before going to bed, she applied some ointment on her lips. Originally it was only a little red and swollen, but now it was basically invisible. When she ate it, she didn't feel strange. Jingwon ate half full and stopped eating. The people around her all knew that it was hard for her to get carsick. If she ate too much, she would feel even worse, so they didn't persuade her to eat more. Then Jingwon noticed something wrong. Look at the sun. The time for staying has already passed. Why haven't you left yet? Something came up. We'll probably have to wait for another hour, Qingzhu replied. What happened? It didn't seem strange that she encountered an assassination when she was just taking a walk. Something happened when she woke up after sleeping. Jingwon lowered her head and drank a mouthful of the soup to relieve the heat. She didn't wait for their answer. She raised her head and saw that they all wanted to say something but stopped. She suddenly became curious. What's wrong? Does it have something to do with me? Has nothing to do with you. It's just that you were frightened earlier. Don't bother to listen to those dirty things. Nanny Gong came over and explained to Jingwon. Jingwon's heart skipped a beat. She was scared because she saw the bloody scene, and also because she witnessed the scene of Li Hongyuan cold-blooded killing. It was just a normal thing. How could it affect her? It was most likely that she saw blood again or someone died directly. It was really quite unpeaceful along the way. Where is sister-in-law? Is she taking a nap? Since Nanny Gong didn't want her to know, she didn't ask, lest she felt disgusted. https://www.yanguwaiwo.com/11/11807/6653163. HTML. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.yanguwaiwo.com. Bikugo mobile version reading website, M. Yanguwaiwo. Chapter 173. Jingwon nodded. As long as her own people were well, it was fine. Other people, it was not her turn to care, nor did she want to care. Not long after, the servants started to pack up the things. The Luo family's shed was built quickly, so it was naturally not a big problem to pack it up. Without much effort, everything was properly packed up. They could even take advantage of the time before departure to rest for a while. Sun Yijia impolitely boarded Jingwon's carriage. She saw that there was indeed no effect, so the carriages continued to move forward. Other than the two of them, there was also a servant girl left in the carriage. Did sister-in-law sleep well? Very well. Sun Yijia nodded and picked up a sour plum from the small table and put it in her mouth. Because the window curtain was not down, Jingwon suddenly saw a carriage that was abandoned after the horse was untied. It was a good carriage and looked ordinary. It definitely did not belong to any Wangye or Wangfei. However, there were other family members in the Wangfu. Naturally, the carriage was not of that high standard. And in front of the Luo family, it was not only members of the imperial family. Jingwon's heart moved. If everything was fine, this carriage naturally would not be abandoned like this. It seemed that it was related to the previous incident. Whose carriage is this? It should be the Grand Secretary's. Sun Yijia glanced at it and withdrew her gaze with lack of interest. However, there was a bit of schadenfreude in her tone. The one who had an accident was Ruan Fengfei, so she was naturally happy. I heard that when Ruan Fengfei was resting, a very scary and dirty thing appeared on the carriage. She was very frightened and even went a bit crazy. Jingwan was rather speechless. Ruan Fengfei was her enemy, but she did not feel anything. This sister-in-law was actually happy. It's good that she went crazy. It's best if she went completely crazy. Then she doesn't need to enter Jin Wangfu to avoid annoying people. Sister-in-law. Jingwan was helpless. How could she still remember this? Alright, I won't say any more. She, Ruan Fengfei, has been plagued with bad luck recently. If I say too much it will be bad luck. Jingwan didn't know whether Ruan Fengfei was unlucky or not. She only knew that Ruan Fengfei was indeed unlucky. And it was bloody unlucky. Even if it wasn't something that could scare people into madness, it was obviously messing with her. Jingwan originally wanted to take revenge, but looking at it now, it was as if someone was taking revenge for her. Moreover, it was done step by step, little by little. It felt like they could kill Ruan Fengfei with one stab, but in fact, they were using a blunt knife to cut her flesh. They would not stop until she was tortured and in heart-wrenching pain. She didn't know if it was to avenge her, but it was a fact that someone was targeting Ruan Fengfei. Then who was this person? Was it the Jin Qin Wang Li Hongyuan who had humiliated Ruan Fengfei in the beginning at the Gong Qin Wang Fu? There were many things that seemed right but were actually wrong. However, when you really thought about it carefully, you would find that it couldn't withstand the scrutiny at all. There were many loopholes that couldn't be connected at all. Then, these clues seemed to have been deliberately left behind by someone, and it felt like they could be erased. Perhaps it was because of the Ruan family's matter that Lu Qingdi's mood wasn't very good. Of course, most people didn't know that Jin Qin Wang had been assassinated by a rebel thief. After that, unless it was necessary, they didn't stop. Fortunately, for 2 consecutive days nothing happened. At this speed, they would arrive at Chengde Summer Palace in another day. However, on the evening of the first day, they passed by a river. However, the bad luck was that the bridge was broken. The depression in Lu Qingdi's heart hadn't dissipated, and now that they encountered another unlucky incident, he couldn't help but feel angry. It should be known that in front of the ceremonial guards, there were people who cleared the road first. Along the way, unrelated people were cleared early on and prohibited from passing. Previously, they didn't receive the news that the bridge was broken. Now, wouldn't it make them furious? Unfortunately, no matter how angry they were, the bridge was broken, and there was no way around it. It couldn't be repaired in a short period of time. They couldn't go back to the capital, so they could only choose to take a detour. The result of their exploration was that there was a rope bridge 1 li upstream. Obviously, it couldn't be used. Further up, they didn't find it for the time being. 2 li downstream, there was still a rope bridge. Finally, they found another bridge 7 or 8 li downstream, which could barely allow the carriage to pass. Thus the caravan turned back. Because they couldn't walk along the riverbank, they could only turn back 1 li and go downstream. However, it was a road that could barely allow the carriage to pass. Along the way, it still needed to be leveled, so the speed was naturally slow. In short, it could be summed up with one word: annoying. You say, almost every year they had to avoid the summer heat. Every year they had to walk that road. Naturally, they had to maintain it every year, but the result? The road became more and more uneven. Jingwan sat in the carriage and really suffered. Unfortunately, because Luo Jinghua had to take care of his wife, and because the sun was high up in the sky, other than the horse pulling the carriage, he didn't prepare any more horses. Even if she wanted to get down to ride, she couldn't. It was also at this time that an Yi led a horse over. His intention was self-evident. Jingwan was slightly silent. To be honest, when Jin Qin Wang was considerate, it really made people unable to resist and hard to refuse. However, Jingwan's gaze stayed on an Yi for a moment. "You're Jin Qin Wang's bodyguard captain?" Replying to Miss Luo, "Yes." He didn't know Jingwan's intention, but he still obediently answered. Jingwan didn't want to continue to suffer in the carriage, so she accepted Li Hongyuan's kindness. "Thank Wangya for me. Miss Luo is too polite." And Yi left the horse behind and left. Jingwan got down from the carriage. She naturally knew how to ride a horse, but she wasn't very proficient. If it was flat she could run, but if it wasn't flat and there were some small hills, she could only ride. Compared to Jin Qinhuang's horse skills at the Great War Princess Fu, the difference was more than 108,000 li. Fortunately, the current journey was slow. To ride a horse to keep up was just a small matter. Then Jingwan put on a gauze hat, stepped on the saddle, and mounted the horse. When she sat down, Jingwan found something unusual. The cushion of the saddle felt the same as the couch in the carriage, soft and slightly cold. Looking at the shape of the saddle, she knew that it was definitely prepared a long time ago and wasn't a temporary idea. Moreover, this horse was a BMW, but it seemed very docile. It didn't kick its hooves just because the person on its back was a stranger. Most likely, it was prepared before leaving the capital. Perhaps it was specially prepared for her and was needed in an emergency. Jingwan didn't want to be narcissistic, but it was proven more than once that Jin Qinhuang really did it for her. This fake could be so attentive, then what about the original one? To what extent did Jin Qinhuang treat her well? However, under normal circumstances, when dealing with a substitute, other than forcibly seizing, shouldn't there be a standard for every word and action of the original? Especially for this kind of overbearing and unreasonable person like Jin Qinhuang. However, the truth was not like this. He never asked her for anything, but everything was according to her own preferences. She couldn't understand it. Jingwan felt that she was still deeply influenced by Jin Qinhuang. Otherwise, why would she think about it every time he did something? He clearly told her every time if she couldn't figure it out, then she shouldn't think about it. Riding the horse, neither fast nor slow, neither fast nor slow. Without the uncomfortable feeling of dizziness and panic, Jingwan felt quite leisurely. However, it seemed that they wouldn't be able to cross the river before dark. Was this the rhythm of having to sleep in the wild again? Speaking of this summer palace, they had to go there every year. Only the road was repaired, but there was no relay station along the way. According to reason, it should be calculated at the right time to set up a relay station for resting and lodging. Moreover, because it was a place where the emperor needed to use, it should be very luxurious. As a result, along the way, there wasn't even a normal relay station. Jingwan asked out of curiosity, and the result made people speechless. Qingda Summer Palace was built during the reign of Emperor Taizu of Qi Yuan. It was not the palace site left by the previous dynasty that was remodeled. Except for the more than 30 li that overlapped with the official road, there was no relay station until the palace. According to Emperor Taizu, his descendants should know the hardships and appreciate the beauty of the mountains and rivers. There were few opportunities to go out on weekdays. Therefore, the journey to the summer palace was a rare opportunity that must be grasped. Therefore, Emperor Taizu called for his descendants to eat and sleep in the wild. After hearing this, Jingwan wanted to ask Emperor Taizu, "Did you have a stroke in your brain?" As the emperor, the master of the world, it was really eating and sleeping in the wild. It would only be more tiring. Just imagine, in order to let the emperor eat and sleep well without a relay station, how many things would have to accompany the journey? How cumbersome would it be? It would be more reliable if you ordered that the relay station be built like a summer palace. Sure enough, as Jingwan expected, there was still some distance to the bridge. The sky was getting darker and darker. If they didn't find a place to sleep for the night, they would probably have to move in the dark. Lu Chengdi had to order to find a place with a dark face. Soon, there was a village built near the river not far ahead. Lu Chengdi lowered his status. It was a big village with more than 100 households and a population of nearly 1,000. Because it was not particularly far from the capital, some people had been to the capital. However, not everyone had the opportunity to see the emperor. Therefore, when they heard that the emperor was coming, the whole village was frightened and excited. They had long known that the emperor would go to the summer palace in a few days. Some people even wanted to sneak a peek. Of course, they could only see the majesty of the emperor from a distance. They absolutely couldn't see the emperor clearly. After all, the clattering of the iron hooves of the guards was frightening. Jingwan didn't know that it was unusual for such a big village to be a few miles away from the summer palace. However, it seemed that it had existed for a long time and had been well behaved. Moreover, the imperial guards had carefully checked it and found that there was no problem. For something like an assassination, it should be considered very lucky to encounter it once, right? Therefore, they settled down in the village. Every family wanted to make room for these nobles, especially Li Zheng, who wanted to invite Lu Chengdi to stay at his home. Unfortunately, Lu Chengdi said that he didn't want to disturb the villagers, so he politely declined. As for whether he really didn't disturb the people or disliked it, they didn't cook their own food but borrowed the kitchens of the families. Jingwan had already returned to the carriage. Sun Yijia also returned to her and Luo Jingbu's carriage after the hottest period. Looking outside through the gap of the window curtain, both adults and children poked their heads out to look inside with curiosity and excitement. However, not only the imperial guards, but the guards of the families also stuck to their duties. The young ladies and madams didn't show their faces, but the servant girls were busy going in and out. One must know that they were all servants. In the eyes of these people, they were unattainable. The peasant women were inevitably envious and jealous. Some men even couldn't help but reveal a lustful look. These beautiful and tender young ladies, perhaps they would never see them again in their lives. Jingwan frowned and put down the curtain. No matter what, she inexplicably didn't like this place. It wasn't that she had any opinions about these people who were at the bottom. In her opinion, if she couldn't change the social structure, then it was better to completely isolate them. No matter where it was, in fact, there was a phenomenon of hatred for the rich. If one didn't come into contact with it, perhaps it would be better. Once one came into contact with it, there would be an obvious difference in feeling and the gap in one's heart would grow. This could become the root of crime. When Jingwan heard that there were some young masters who seemed to be curious and brought people to wander around the village, her frown deepened. This wasn't a small village. There should be a lot of unmarried young ladies, and there must be some outstanding ones. Who knew if they would disturb the spring water because of them? In her previous life, there were a lot of melodramatic encounters in ancient dramas. However, if it wasn't a trap set by someone, even if it wasn't, the innocent young ladies who entered a noble house because of their appearance wouldn't have a good ending in the end. Jingwan sent someone to tell Luo Jingbu to stay in the carriage obediently to accompany his wife. Originally, Luo Jingbu and his wife wanted to go down the carriage for a walk. However, when they heard Jingwan's words, they dismissed the idea. When they lifted the curtain and looked outside, they seemed to understand Jingwan's intention. Jingwan casually ate some food in the carriage. Originally, she didn't prepare much, and there wasn't much left. However, even so, if those farmers saw it, they might be drooling. Jingwan basically didn't use the serving chopsticks when eating. Therefore, she basically wouldn't give the leftovers to the maids. Now, it was even more impossible to give it to outsiders. Wash the dishes yourself. In addition, send some snacks, dried fruits and other things to the master. Also, leave some money for him. After Jingwan gave the order, she didn't say anything else. It might be more convenient to take a bath when sleeping in the wild. However, here Jingwan felt uncomfortable. Therefore, she decided to endure it for the night and just casually wash up. No matter how much time was wasted, she would definitely arrive at the temporary imperial residence before tomorrow night. At that time, she would have a good bath. As night fell, the village gradually quieted down. Only the occasional dog barking could be heard from afar. Jingwan didn't sleep very well in the carriage. In the middle of the night, Jingwan suddenly woke up. It should be known that this situation was very rare for her. Jingwan faintly heard the noise. Was it almost dawn? "Mama, what time is it?" Mama Gong was right beside her. She reached out and patted her. It's still early. Do you want to drink some water? Yes. Then a small lamp was lit. The light wasn't strong, but it was just enough for her to see clearly. Without Mama Gong's order, the maid quickly brought in the water. After all, their carriage was right next to them. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653165. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile edition. Chapter 174. Jingwon drank the water and listened carefully. She felt something was wrong. Did something happen? Miss, do you want me to go and have a look? Nanny Gong said. Jingwon shook her head. No need. If something really happened, we'll know in the morning. Something that happened in the middle of the night was definitely not a good thing. Might be some shady business. No matter what the purpose was, whether or not he could find out was one thing, but he was afraid that he would get himself into trouble if he didn't do it well. Nanny, go and rest. You don't have to stay here to watch over me. We're outside, not at home. Miss, sleep well. I'm fine. Although Nanny Gong spoke softly to her, Jingwon knew her insistence. They had been together day and night for more than 2 years. It was enough for them to know each other's temperament. When Nanny Gong was stubborn, Jingwon could not do anything to her, so she had better go to sleep. Jingwon yawned and lay back down. She was not very awake. After Nanny Gong turned off the light, she fell asleep quickly. After that she slept well. Nanny Gong gently fanned Jingwon to make sure that there was a cool breeze, but it was not too fast to disturb her. In the darkness, although she could not see clearly, Nanny Gong still looked at Jingwon. Good girl, after tonight, those demons and monsters related to the prince will be cleaned up. He said that he will treat you well for the rest of his life. Believe him. Although he often does not abide by the rules, does whatever he wants, and is overbearing and bad-tempered, he always keeps his word. You will live a good life. You don't have to rely on the third young master and third young mistress. Good girl, you will live a good life. At this moment, Emperor Lu Chengdi was sitting upright in the Li Zheng's house. Although he was not wearing the imperial throne of the imperial court and was only wearing casual clothes, he still exuded an extraordinary aura, especially the cold air that was emitted from his body, which made people shiver even though it was June. There were quite a number of people present. The nobles and ministers were better off, but the commoners were kneeling on the ground, shivering. Not only the common people were kneeling on the ground, but there were also 2 people of high status kneeling in front of Lu Qingdi. Why did Imperial Father summon me here in the middle of the night? Li Hongyuan walked in casually from the outside. His voice was a little hoarse because he hadn't woken up yet. At the same time, his displeasure could be felt from his body. Thinking about it, it was reasonable that he was woken up from a good sleep. If it wasn't his father who invited him, he would probably be very angry. Lu Qingdi raised his head and glanced at his 6th son. His hair was hanging loosely behind his head, and his coat was casually draped over his shoulders. Under the dim light of the fire, Lu Chengdi looked much more docile and harmless than usual, which was full of anger. As his father, Lu Chengdi had never seen him like this. Your clothes are disheveled, what a scandal! Li Hongyuan frowned, feeling that his anger was rising again. In fact, he had never slept well. When he slept, the environment was very quiet, and any noise would disturb him. When he woke up, he was very grumpy. These days on the road, he naturally didn't sleep well. At this time, even his father wouldn't be able to get a good look from him. He rubbed his eyebrows and suppressed his anger. Imperial Father, what's the matter? If there's something, say it quickly. This prince still needs to sleep. He glanced at the people kneeling on the ground. Why aren't you sleeping? Are you singing a drama? In his previous life, after he ascended the throne, especially after the country was stable, even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, it would have to wait until he woke up. In this life, the only thing that could disturb his sleep without arousing his anger was probably Jingwan's matter. Being woken up in the middle of the night, no one would be happy. Knowing his temperament, Lu Qingdi didn't argue with him at this time. Yuan sit down first. Noble consort Su said in a soft voice. Li Hongyuan glanced in the direction of the voice. Imperial Mother, why are you here? Imperial Mother and your Imperial Father don't want to be tormented at this time. But, alas! Noble consort Su sighed helplessly. Eunuch Mu and the others brought a chair for him and placed it next to Noble consort Su. Li Hongyuan seemed to hesitate for a moment, then slowly walked over with a sullen expression. After sitting down, he directly reached out and pressed his hand to his forehead. He leaned against the chair in an undignified manner and then closed his eyes. From where Imperial concubine Su was sitting, she could clearly see his slightly furrowed brows. There was a hint of forbearance and sullenness mixed in. He seemed to be quite uncomfortable. Noble consort Su felt sorry for her son. Her son usually slept until he woke up naturally. Waking up in the middle of the night, he must be suffering. Therefore, her anger towards the culprit rose even more. Lord Ruan, how long is your good daughter going to make us wait? Even though Ruan Ruizhong's back was hunched, he seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. He looked dispirited. Although he had only twisted his waist before, he probably wasn't very nimble now, so Noble consort Su's anger didn't subside. Noble consort. Ruan Ruizhong's lips moved, but he couldn't say the rest of the words. Li Hongyuan opened his eyes and glanced at him. This old man was already so depressed now. When he knew everything, even if he didn't vomit blood and die, he would most likely have a stroke and collapse in bed. Wouldn't the plan of squeezing him for a few more years be ruined? Li Hongyuan looked away with disinterest. In the entire Qi Yuan there were tens of millions of people. Couldn't they find a person who could replace him, Ruan Ruizhong? If it was useless, then it was useless. Is Ruan Fengfei causing trouble again? Tell me what's going on first. That little b** has the gall of a bear's heart and leopard's guts. As your future imperial consort, she actually hooked up with someone else. Noble consort Su gnashed her teeth and said hatefully. Ruan Ruizhong's vision turned black, but he couldn't defend himself and could only gasp for breath. Li Hongyuan paused and then straightened his body, slightly surprised. This is her way of making Ben Wang regret? He sneered. She's really going all out. Looking at the two men kneeling in front of Lu Chengdi, no, one of them could only be said to be a teenager. Then, who is this man, Uncle Zhong or 11th brother or both of them? Jin Qin Wang. Ruan Ruizhong trembled all over, looking like he couldn't wait to strangle Li Hongyuan to death. That's why, once Li Hongyuan's mouth became poisonous, even a saint could stomp his feet. Li Hongyuan sneered. She has the guts to do it. Why would she be afraid of others talking about it? Sixth brother, it has nothing to do with me. It's Uncle Zhong, not me, it has nothing to do with me. 11th prince hurriedly distanced himself. He didn't want to be remembered by the terrifying sixth brother. He also made a move on his several imperial brothers who held great power, without any leniency. He himself, this pitiful worm without power and influence, certainly wouldn't be enough to play with him for a round. Speaking of which, 11th prince was also depressed. He was just used to seeing all kinds of beauties around him. Suddenly coming to this kind of place, he met a good-looking and enthusiastic girl and wanted to taste a beauty with a different flavor. To put it bluntly, he was used to eating exotic delicacies and suddenly wanted to taste plain porridge and side dishes, just as Jingwan expected when she first entered the village. This girl happened to be from Li Zheng's family. Moreover, speaking of which, he was the one who was seduced. Perhaps she really was blinded by riches and honor and wanted to achieve good things early. That girl was hungry and couldn't be choosy, and chose someone who seemed to be easy to hook up with and had a noble status. And a certain prince really willingly took the bait. So there was an appointment at night. Unfortunately, this pair of wild mandarin ducks was just about to fiercely grind each other when they heard movement and bumped into another pair of wild mandarin ducks who were working hard to fight. That feeling was really... Previously, when Lu Chengdi didn't say anything, 11th Prince knelt quietly. At this moment, he probably really wanted to prove his innocence to his 6th brother, so he spilled the beans and explained the cause and effect of his experience clearly without omitting anything. Therefore, in the eyes of these unfavored princes, Li Hongyuan's despotic power was more terrifying than Lu Qingdi's power. 11th Prince was not yet 14, but since he first had sex, there were signs that he couldn't stop. However, because he was still in the palace and wasn't old enough to marry, he could only fool around with the palace maids around him. Then, he secretly looked at the other palace maids in the palace, even his father's concubines, and swallowed his saliva. It was no wonder that he was so easily tempted by her. After he finished speaking, Lu Chengdi lifted his leg and kicked him. What a good-for-nothing! 11th Prince staggered, but Lu Chengdi didn't use too much force, so he knelt down obediently. However, he carefully moved a little further away. In Lu Chengdi's mind, 6th Prince was also beautiful, but he knew restraint. He was not the kind of licentious person who disregarded his health and dared to play without restraint. His hair was not even fully grown, but he dared to play without restraint. Was he not afraid of hurting his health? After all, he was his son. He had to ask the imperial physician to check his pulse after the matter. However, even if his son took the initiative to do something wrong, it was because he was led astray by others. Moreover, this time he was obviously seduced by others. So this was all the fault of the other party. Li Zheng, you have raised a good daughter. Li Zheng knelt on the ground, trembling more and more. His daughter was usually proud and arrogant, but who knew that she would do such a ridiculous thing? Your Majesty. He trembled but couldn't say more. The girl wasn't any better. She didn't have the bold enthusiasm of seducing others. Your Majesty, in my opinion, since 11th Prince likes this girl a little, why don't we take her away? There's nothing bad about being a maid. After all, if we punish a girl when we pass by this village, it's equivalent to disturbing the peace here. It's also bad for your Majesty's reputation. What do you think? Imperial concubine Su suggested. Imperial concubine Su knew the temperament of people like 11th Prince too well. He purely wanted to taste something new. If he didn't eat it, he probably couldn't forget it. After the novelty passed, he would think about tonight and look at the wild flower picked by the roadside. He would only think about how embarrassing it was. It would be strange if this wild flower could have a good life. The way to punish people really didn't have to be so simple and crude. It could be more tactful and wouldn't ruin the reputation. Lu Chengdi pondered for a moment. As my beloved concubine says, "Thank you, Imperial Father. Thank you, Imperial concubine." 11th Prince hurriedly kowtowed. Li Zhang and his daughter didn't know the rules, but he couldn't not understand. That's enough. Scram to the side. Thus, this pair of wild mandarin ducks was let off lightly. However, the other pair wasn't so simple. Old Madame Ruan came late with Ruan Fengfei supported. Behind them was Imperial concubine Su's aunt. It was obvious that she had just washed up and dressed. Ruan Fengfei was originally dispirited and listless because of the shock from the 3 heads. It could even be said that she had been muddle-headed. Now, even if she had seriously washed up, she had lost all her luster. There was a state where even if it was withered, you could still feel its vitality. There was also a state where no matter how beautiful it was, you could only feel the decay emitting from it. There was no doubt that Ruan Fengfei was in the second state. She was rotten from the inside like a walking corpse, moving slowly. When the aunt behind her pushed her to kneel down, she was still in a trance. As for her mother, she didn't seem to be in a good state either. When Ruan Rui saw his wife and daughter like this, He was extremely distressed. He almost burst into tears. Trembling, he got up and knelt beside the mother and daughter. "Emperor, I'm afraid there are other secrets in this matter. Emperor, please investigate thoroughly." His daughter was caught having sex with someone. This had already become an indelible fact. Now that things had reached this point, it was better to completely break up and get rid of it. His daughter was either forced or framed. It was better than shamelessly gaining a reputation for being lascivious. Seeing the officials who had always been loyal to him like this, Lu Chengdi's heart softened. He sighed softly. In that case, let the two of them explain the ins and outs of the matter clearly. Royal brother, tell me first, what exactly is going on? The one who was the most aggrieved right now was probably Prince Zhong. He still didn't know how this happened. He inexplicably became an adulterer. He was only slightly awakened when he was caught, and when he found out about the situation he was facing, he was almost scared to death. Imperial brother. Prince Zhong's lips wriggled. This matter. He didn't know how to say it. He was afraid that no one would believe him. However, he had to say it. Because it was too hot and I couldn't sleep, I kept tossing and turning on the bed. So, this younger brother simply got up and walked around blindly. Because the Imperial army was patrolling at night, this younger brother didn't bring any guards. Unknowingly, I walked a little further away. When I heard some noise, I was a little scared and was about to turn back. Who knew that I suddenly smelled a strange fragrance? After that, I didn't know what happened. Then my nephew and the others appeared and attracted the Imperial army. Prince Zhong looked vexed. This meant that he was definitely not the one who was scheming. It just happened that he was the one who was being schemed against. Lu Chengdi's brows were tightly knitted. Prince Zhong suddenly became anxious. Imperial brother, believe me. Everything I said is absolutely true. Although this Miss Ruan hasn't married into the family, she is still sixth nephew's woman in name. Even if I ate a bear's heart and a leopard's gall, I wouldn't dare to touch his woman. Believe me, I'm really innocent. He almost cried. Okay, shut up, Lu Chengdi said irritably. Noble consort Su looked at Prince Zhong with an even worse expression. At that time, son Yijia was Yuaner's prospective Wangfei. His son dared to have evil thoughts. Now, she was just a prospective secondary consort. Father and son were of the same origin. What did he not dare to do? Lu Chengdi's eyes fell on Ruan Fengfei, who kept her head down. Ruan, what do you have to say? Fengfei, what grievances do you have? Tell His Majesty. His Majesty will definitely make a decision for you. Fengfei, say something, Fengfei. Madame Ruan shook Ruan Fengfei and cried uncontrollably. After a long time, Ruan Fengfei slowly turned her head to look at her mother in a daze. Say what? There's nothing to say. Fengfei. Madame Ruan hugged her. Good daughter, don't be like this. Although Ruan Fengfei looked like this on the surface, in fact, her heart was unprecedentedly sober, very sober, including when she was scared to the point that she lost her mind. After this incident, she recovered without any medicine. Perhaps it was similar to the saying that when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. In the middle of the night, her cousin from her maternal family came to find her. Because the people who served her, including her mother, all knew him and knew that they were close, they didn't stop him and couldn't stop him. He told her that he had been following the carriage. He said that he missed her so much that he almost went crazy. He had a lot to say to her. He was pulled down from the carriage and ordered the servants not to follow. He was a hooligan and his martial arts were very good. However, Ruan Fengfei didn't care and still trusted him. Not only did he know too many of her secrets and helped her do a lot of things that she couldn't do in person, but she knew that her condition wasn't very good. When it was quiet around her, the three heads appeared in front of her eyes. She needed to do something to distract herself. She knew the current situation. If she was discovered by others, her end would be very miserable. However, whether it was the fragrance on her cousin's body or his strong arms, It made her feel at ease. Therefore, everything went according to his wishes. Even though there were many torches outside the carriages, he still brought her out. The haystack field next to the village, facing the carriages, was faintly visible under the light of the torches. However, once they entered, they basically couldn't see it. What happened next would be her nightmare for the rest of her life. However, Ruan Fengfei couldn't say anything. Although she didn't know the details of her mother's background, she knew that she had secrets, including her maternal family. Her cousin and her mother might be of the same origin. Her maternal family hadn't come to the capital for so many years, and those who came were secretly doing things. She didn't sacrifice herself for her mother, but rather, if her mother's matter was exposed, it was very likely that it would implicate the whole family. Perhaps the whole family would be executed. She didn't want to throw her life away. Moreover, although her mother cared about her, if it involved the matters behind her, it was very likely that her mother wouldn't let her say a word that could threaten her. Her mother might even kill her first. "Mother, let me die. I don't want to live anymore. Let me die." Ruan Fengfei's tears streamed down. Taking advantage of her mother's inattention, she suddenly slapped her hand away, got up abruptly, and rushed towards a tree in the courtyard. That tree wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It was just that no one would stand under that tree for no reason, so Ruan Fengfei bumped into it head-on. Then, her body fell limply to the ground. Ruan Ruizhong and his wife were stunned at first, but then they reacted. "Fengfei." That mournful voice seemed to indicate that she was already a dead person. Fortunately, although there were a lot of people in this village, it was still big enough. The neighbors lived relatively far away from each other. Otherwise, this voice would have alarmed the entire village. However, even so, the few families nearby would have heard it. The husband and wife rolled and crawled over. They hugged the unconscious Ruan Fengfei and cried miserably. Lu Chengdi rubbed his suddenly swollen temples. "Call the imperial physician." Because of Ruan Fengfei's strange fate of not being able to be the main wife of the imperial family, Lu Chengdi didn't care at first, but he couldn't bear imperial consort Su's displeasure. With such a fate, there must be something wrong with this person. She was a good mother who doted on her son. She was worried that something wrong would harm her son, so she would whisper a few words in Lu Chengdi's ear from time to time. Even if it wasn't intentional, after a long time, Lu Chengdi's impression of Ruan Fengfei would also worsen. With this bad impression, good things would make him suspicious, and bad things would make him more evil. Ruan Fengfei's suicide attempt didn't make Lu Chengdi pity her at all. If she really died, he probably wouldn't even frown. Imperial consort Su's face was even gloomier. She had seen this kind of little trick many times. There was clearly something wrong with this matter, but she refused to say it. She desperately wanted to avoid this matter. Wouldn't it make people suspect that she was a fickle woman who schemed against men? Where did she put her son? Where did she put the imperial family's face? If it wasn't the emperor who spoke, she would never allow the imperial physician to be called. "Little slut, it's best if you die. You're so disgusting." Li Hongyuan looked on coldly from the sidelines. He could clearly see that Ruan Fengfei had bumped into the tree trunk fiercely. In the end, when she was about to hit the tree trunk, she deliberately shifted her position. He was sure that Ruan Fengfei wouldn't die. He only gave the order and didn't know the specific situation. However, it didn't matter. In any case, he had already distanced himself from this matter. Moreover, it was good that she was so tenacious. He wanted to see how long she could last. Then, his gaze shifted to the woman who was hugging her. Now, this woman was already suspicious. However, it was because of this that she was even more afraid of taking action. After all, once her identity was exposed, she would definitely die without a burial place. As for Li Hongyuan himself, because he didn't want to expose his power for the time being, he didn't kill her ruthlessly. However, even if he was really exposed, Li Hongyuan wasn't afraid. It was just that it would be troublesome to clean up the mess later. He might even implicate the bowls. The only one who could make him worry would always be Jingwen. Moreover, this woman at most managed the Ruan family's backyard like an iron bucket. She didn't extend her hands too far. Ruan Ruizhong wasn't someone to be trifled with. If she really touched his forbidden area, he would immediately wake up. Without Ruan Ruizhong, this big tree, this woman would come to an end. As for those people in the capital, their movements were all under his control. Therefore, in truth, even if there were some small loopholes, he was too lazy to fix them. These loopholes would be ignored or torn apart. The process would be complicated or simple, but the final result wouldn't change. Li Hongyuan slowly stood up. Imperial father, imperial mother, this son will take his leave first. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone present heard it. Lu Chengdi looked at him. How are you going to deal with this matter? Li Hongyuan glanced at his father. Imperial father's words are strange. Naturally, I'll deal with it as it should be. Don't tell me this woman who has slept with countless men still needs this son to carry her back to the residence. The corner of Lu Chengdi's mouth twitched. Don't talk nonsense with this old man. If it's that simple, why would I call you here? Li Hongyuan smiled sarcastically. This son's face has already been ruined 8 or 10 times. At most, the scope of my curse has expanded, and even my concubines have been cursed. The Grand Secretary is your trusted aide, so this son still has to give him face. Ruan Fengfei has nothing to do with this son anymore. As for the rest, Imperial father can deal with it as it should be. Yuan don't talk nonsense. This time it has nothing to do with you at all. Imperial concubine Su's gaze was like a knife stabbing at Ruan Fengfei. Especially when she saw that she was showing signs of waking up with a groan. She couldn't wait to go up and strangle her to death. It's also because of your good nature that you didn't bicker with her. Otherwise, even if she was drowned in the river, she deserved it. Ruan Fengfei had indeed woken up. She had a terrible headache, felt dizzy and heavy and felt nauseous. Although she wanted to avoid a direct death, in order to make it look real, she naturally couldn't hit her too lightly. Ruan Fengfei grabbed her mother's arm tightly and forced herself to open her eyes. Her vision was blurry, but she stared at Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for you. Impudent, is Yuaner's name something you can call out directly? What, you still want to blame Yuaner for today's matter? Don't think that just because your father is the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet, you can take yourself seriously. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Imperial concubine Su angrily scolded. Ruan Ruizhong was also angry, but he could only tell Ruan Fengfei to shut up, and then apologize to Imperial concubine Su. Imperial concubine, please don't be angry. My daughter didn't mean it that way. Imperial concubine Su sneered. I don't care what she means. It's fortunate that such a fickle woman didn't enter the family. Otherwise, wouldn't she have directly made my son wear a green hat today? As the saying goes, cultivate one's body, govern the country, and bring peace to the world. There's nothing to say about Lord Ruan being an official. However, it's better to put some effort into the family. Everyone says that you married a good wife, a virtuous wife and a loving mother, but in the end, you raised your daughter to be like this. As a daughter, she usually looks good in all aspects, but deep down she's a lowly person. As a mother, she's dignified and virtuous. Perhaps she's the same kind of person deep down. Imperial concubine. Ruan Ruizhong's tone became harsher. Imperial concubine, please don't slander others. There must be a hidden story about my daughter's matter. Hidden story? Course there is. The hidden story is that she's naturally dissolute and seduced men in her boudoir. Imperial concubine. Could it not be? If she didn't run out on her own, would she be at the haystack? Don't say that she was schemed against and was taken away by others. How many servants in your Ruan family say that they're vegetarians? Even if she was schemed against with so many people, why was it only her who got into trouble every time? In the end, isn't it because there's something wrong with her? Ruan Fengfei refused to defend herself, and Ruan Ruizhong was rendered speechless by Imperial concubine Su. Lu Chengdi coughed lightly. Beloved concubine, that's enough. Lu Chengdi was simply giving advice after imperial concubine Su had finished speaking. It was so stifling that it made one's heart, liver, and lungs hurt. Zhongqing, go to the Ruan family and ask if it's the same as before. Replying to your majesty, this subject has made the decision without authorization. I've already asked. There's nothing unusual with the Ruan family. Yu Zhongqing, who was guarding the courtyard door like a guardian, immediately responded. Well, previously, Ruan Fengfei was frightened and 3 people were drugged. However, since then, there was no one who left her side, but there was nothing unusual. Lu Chengdi couldn't help but suspect that his beloved concubine's deduction was correct. It was already hot, and Ruan Ruizhong was sweating profusely. He wanted to ask Ruan Fengfei again, but unfortunately he fainted again. Master, can you let it go first? Save her first, save her first. Madame Ruan pressed a handkerchief to her forehead and pleaded. Yes, yes, the imperial physician. Where's the imperial physician? The imperial physician had actually already arrived and was huddled at the courtyard door. When he heard Ruan Ruizhong's voice, he hurriedly came in and greeted Lu Chengdi and imperial concubine Su. Okay, quickly go take a look. The scene fell into silence again. This son will take his leave. Li Hongyuan spoke again. Without waiting for Lu Chengdi's response, he directly lifted his feet and left. Lu Chengdi didn't ask him to stay. He turned to look at imperial concubine Su. Beloved concubine Rua, why don't you rest first? Wait a little longer. Your Majesty, since Miss Ruan is unwilling to tell the truth, we can't use torture on her. Let's not talk about the cause of the incident. So many people saw what happened between her and Prince Zhong. It's better to deal with it as soon as possible. My poor Yuan, clearly didn't do anything, but he was inexplicably implicated again and again. As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry. Not to mention others, even Lu Chengdi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. That evil creature was pitiful. And before, what did she say that he had a good temper? If he was pitiful, then there was no one in the world who wasn't pitiful. If he had a good temper, then there was no one in the world with a bad temper. However, Ruan Ruizhong and his wife, as well as Prince Zhong and the others, all looked at Lu Chengdi. Lu Chengdi pondered for a moment. Beloved official Ruan has been loyal to me and worked hard for Qi Yuan. I can't bear to see his good reputation ruined. Imperial brother, you don't have a wife now. You should marry this daughter of the Ruan family. The subject obeys. Prince Zhong always knew what to do in front of Lu Chengdi. Imperial concubine Su slightly lowered her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes. Ruan had ruined her son's reputation, yet he still wanted to retreat unscathed and become a prince consort. Not only did he not trample on Ruan, but he also raised her status and made her a senior instead of a concubine. It wasn't so beautiful even in her dreams. She leaned closer to Lu Chengdi. Your Majesty, have you forgotten the order that Master Liaochen gave to Miss Ruan? With this reminder, Lu Chengdi suddenly came to his senses. Thank you for reminding me. So he turned his head and changed his words. The daughter of the Ruan family is impure after all. She should be a concubine. Ruan Ruizhong almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In his opinion, it was obvious that noble consort Su was playing tricks. Obviously, she had forgotten that Li Hongyuan had told him about Ruan Fengfei's fate. Thank you, Your Majesty. It was fortunate that Jingwan was not present. Otherwise, she would have asked the Grand Secretary of the Inner Court to gauge the extent of the trauma in his heart and ask him if he would still be loyal to Lu Chengdi after the way Lu Chengdi treated him. Although thunder and rain were the grace of the emperor, after he gave his heart and soul in exchange for the emperor's thunder, would he really have no complaints in his heart? When Ruan Ruizhong thanked the emperor, at least his heart was not calm. Was he targeting Lu Chengdi, noble consort Su, or Li Hongyuan? Moreover, if Lu Chengdi handled it like this, wouldn't it ruin Ruan Ruizhong's reputation? It wasn't a clever cover-up in the first place. It was equivalent to not having any cover-up at all. If Jin Qinhuang was involved, Trying to cover up would only make it more conspicuous. How about this? Lu Chengdi also felt tired and told them to do what they were told to do. After Ruan Fengfei woke up, if she wanted to talk, then she would talk. If she didn't want to talk, then she wouldn't talk. Lu Chengdi also didn't have the patience to pay attention to him. He only told Yu Zhongqing to strengthen the defense and patrols. Every family also couldn't lower their guard. This journey was really not peaceful. The following matters were also handed over to Yu Zhongqing to wrap up. Even if Li Zhang heard something that he shouldn't have heard, to have given birth to such a shameless daughter, he himself also lost enough face. As long as he was smart, he would restrain his family members and not go outside to talk nonsense. It should be known that as a common person, if they were caught criticizing the imperial family, it would be a serious crime. Li Hongyuan returned to his own Qin Wang carriage. N.E. quietly went up and knelt on one knee in front of Li Hongyuan. He softly reported the matter. The bridge on the road was broken by them. This was within Li Hongyuan's expectations. He also knew about Ruan Fengfei's cousin. Since I said to bite back, then bite back. Keep the person, it will be useful. It was just that the appearance of Qin Wangzhong was really unexpected. Ruan Fengfei's decisive choice was indeed her style. There can't be any more mistakes on Wan's side. Master, rest assured. Because Luo Daran and old Madame Luo already know about Master's matter, when they were in the capital, they had already sent guards to the Luo family. Miss Luo has always been surrounded by people to protect her. There won't be any problems. Li Hongyuan closed his eyes. Go down. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653169. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bikugo mobile reading website. Bicken. Chapter 175. Although she was drenched in sweat, Jingwan was still in good spirits. Taking advantage of this time, Jingwan went to pay her respects to her grandparents. Not long after, Luo Jinghua appeared with son Yijia. Just like the past few days, it was not easy to see his grandfather every morning, talk to him, and have breakfast together. Because there were a total of 5 masters in the Luo family for this trip, they did not separate the male and female seats. They sat together and spoke without scrupulous etiquette. Instead, they appeared to be affectionate. In these few days, Luo Daran even had a little thought of retiring from his official position and enjoying the happiness of family life at home. However, as soon as these words came out, they were strangled in the bud by his furin. Luo Daran stroked his beard. The older his furin got, the more domineering she became. The older she got, the less gentle she became. His position in her heart was also getting worse. Grandmother, did something happen last night? It seemed that there was a bit of noise. Son Yijia suddenly asked. Was there? I don't seem to have felt it. Luo Jinghua said doubtfully. Son Yijia gave him a supercilious look. He was like a dead pig when he was asleep. Even thunder couldn't strike him. How could he have heard that little bit of noise? His own wife was getting more and more impolite now. Luo Jinghua touched his nose embarrassedly. Perhaps we don't know yet. If something really happened, we should know later. Old Madame Luo said. The old couple looked at each other and had a tacit understanding. Last night's incident should have alarmed many people. However, the emperor did not summon them. Therefore, those who should not be involved did not join in the fun. It should not be a small matter. Sure enough, before they set off, some rumors spread out. It must be known that Ruan Fengfei changed from Jin Qinhuang's prospective Zifei to his uncle's prospective Zifei. How could it be hidden? However, because they did not know the specifics, and all kinds of guesses were flying around. When it came to this kind of thing, the so-called guesses were naturally not good. Although not everyone could find out the truth of the matter, there were always some people who had special privileges. For example, the princes, after rejoicing in Li Hongyuan's misfortune in their hearts, they began to consider whether they could benefit from this matter. As for Ruan Fengfei, to put it bluntly, she was just a used shoe. To them she had no value at all. Prince Rue, on the other hand, went to find noble consort Su after a moment of silence. At this moment, noble consort Su was once again the dignified and virtuous noble consort. The way she drank her tea was elegant and noble. Just looking at her was another form of enjoyment. She was completely different from the noble consort Su who spoke harshly and viciously last night. Li Hongming paid his respects. Noble consort Su asked him to sit down. You heard. Yes, but there's one thing I don't understand. Mother's words, would it offend Lord Ruan? If he holds a grudge and defers to someone else, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Ming-er, how old is Lord Ruan? Li Hongming was startled and seemed to understand. Mother is saying. He injured his waist before. When I saw him last night, I could clearly feel that his movements were slowing down. In addition to last night's blow, if he was still young, he would probably be fine. However, he's already old and his temperament has weakened. Naturally, his endurance is weaker. For the time being, he might not have fallen, but the root of the disaster has already been buried. Before Ruan Fengfei's accident, he might have been able to hold on for a few more years until the new emperor ascends the throne. Now, he's returned to the capital for the summer vacation. Therefore, there was no value in roping in a capable person like the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. There was also no need to fear him. If he was offended, then so be it. Li Hongming curled his lips. So that's how it is. Thinking about it, it's indeed human nature. If this matter doesn't affect him much, then it can only mean that his wife and daughter don't have a high position in his heart. According to his usual style, he will definitely weigh the pros and cons and continue his neutral position. Even towards mother. He might even use the excuse of not bickering with women to drop the matter. What you said is not impossible. However, looking at his appearance, the possibility is less than 10%. Li Hongming nodded. The Grand Secretary's importance to his wife and daughter was obvious to all. On the other hand, Ruan Fengfei has been targeted again and again along the way. Previously, she was so frightened that she almost lost her soul. I'm afraid that last night's incident was not simple. If she was already mentally weak, why would she take the initiative to seduce a man? No one would believe it. If she refuses to say, then all the rumors can only be borne by her. As for who is targeting her, who knows? According to Yuaner's previous attitude, he is the biggest suspect. However, he has always been straightforward, and his likes and dislikes are all on the surface. He disdains such methods and he doesn't have the strength to do so. Regarding Li Hongyuan's words, Li Hongming directly ignored them. For this kind of matter, even if she tells the truth, it won't be good. Let's not talk about other things. According to Uncle Zhong's words, he might be a scapegoat. Ruan Fengfei is disfigured and lost her chastity. Uncle Zhong has no real power and won't fight for anything. Lord Ruan can't restrain him. Ruan Fengfei has entered the Prince Zhong Fu and is at Uncle Zhong's mercy. If she makes Uncle Zhong unhappy, she will only suffer. Speaking of which, the reason why she stubbornly refuses to say may not be that complicated. After that, they just chatted and stopped talking about this matter. At this time, Great Elder Princess was also chatting with Lu Chengdi. At that time, I promised Prince Nuozhong to find a new princess who is young, beautiful, gentle, and well-educated. Although Miss Ruan is flawed and doesn't completely match, since she is just a concubine, it's not bad. Brother, please keep an eye on her. Lu Chengdi slightly raised his eyebrows. Sister, you seem to have a good impression of this Ruan's daughter before. Why do you sound like... Brother, a person who is too perfect and excellent in all aspects may not be likable. Lu Chengdi nodded, indicating that he understood. Therefore they were all shrewd people. Even if they didn't see anything, it didn't mean that they didn't feel anything. It didn't mean that they didn't suspect that great elder princess might have liked Ruan Fengfei before, but only she knew how sincere this love was. When Ruan Fengfei disguised herself, she could deceive the world. How easy it was for a person who came out of the imperial palace to deceive people's eyes or tease people's eyes. Under the circumstances that there was no entanglement, great elder princess might not be stingy to give her that little love. After all, Ruan Fengfei pretended a little too much. There was a saying that going too far was as bad as not going far enough. When people didn't notice it, they probably didn't feel anything, but once they noticed it, they would feel it was out of place. Although Ruan Ruizhong and his wife were shrewd people, they didn't notice anything. It could only be said that those who were closely involved could not see clearly. Otherwise, Madame Ruan's education should be different. My adopted daughter is the best. Of course, it would be better if she could be more unrestrained. Great elder princess sighed softly. That girl is so attractive to you. Lu Chengdi was a little surprised. Yes, but I don't like your sixth son very much. That bastard doesn't deserve my adopted daughter. Lu Chengdi looked a little embarrassed. Although the marriage was decreed by me, it was originally the Luo family who asked for it. You were the ones who forced us to take this step. Don't think that you don't have a share in this, imperial brother. If it were up to me, you have made great contributions inside. If there were other paths, you wouldn't have taken this one. Lu Chengdi didn't deny great elder princess's words. He couldn't let one of his sons become too powerful and make the imperial court lose balance. He wanted Luo Peishan to worry about it himself. But in fact, Luo Peishan's final choice was beyond his expectation. Although there was no better candidate than his evil son to be a shield, his reputation was too bad after all. If not for the fact that he was really desperate, he was very satisfied with the final result. Master Liaochen has approved. They are a match made in heaven and a good marriage that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. Great elder princess snorted softly. Because of this, she didn't say anything more. Otherwise she would teach that bastard a lesson. However, even so, great elder princess still felt that she needed to find time to teach him a lesson. At least, he should restrain himself and stop being such a bastard all the time. Otherwise, no matter how good the marriage was, it might be a problem. Because of Li Hongyuan, the Luo family certainly knew the details. Of course, what happened to Ruan Fengfei, except for the parties involved, only the mastermind behind the scenes knew. Sun Yijia looked at Jingwen and laughed for a long time. Jingwen felt that she was simply neurotic. That smile was simply creepy. Helplessly she asked, "Sister-in-law, what are you laughing at?" "What did I say? Prince Jean will bring down everyone except you." Sun Yijia giggled again as she spoke. Jingwen was speechless. Who could tell her why her sister-in-law was so different from others after being pregnant? "Third brother, drag your wife back as soon as possible." Then Luo Jingbua said in a very unmanly manner that his wife was the most important person now. Sun Yijia laughed even more happily. She said that it was her sister-in-law who made this result. So after a long time her sister-in-law climbed over her and abused her. It was she who lifted a stone and dropped it on her own foot. Compared to Sun Yijia's cheerfulness and Jingwen's indifference, Luo Daran and Luo Lao Furen had a kind of calmness as if they already knew it would be like this. There was no other way. Jin Qinhuang had said that he would get rid of the irrelevant people sooner or later. As for the things that happened to Ruan Fengfei along the way, it didn't matter if it was Prince Jin's doing. She could use such a sinister and vicious method to plot against her own granddaughter. What she was suffering now was just giving her a taste of her own medicine. It wasn't worthy of pity or sympathy. Ruan Ruizhong's health had problems. Madame Ruan was very clear. Originally, it was normal to have some small problems at an old age. Even if he was seriously ill, it was understandable. However, she knew that she needed to rely on Ruan Ruizhong, this big tree. Before her goal was achieved, he couldn't fall. Therefore, on the issue of his health, she spent more effort than teaching Ruan Fengfei. Of course, she wasn't the kind of person who did good deeds without leaving a name. Ruan Ruizhong's love for her was also a big factor in this. Leoi, go rest. Chia will look after daughter. Ruan Ruizhong shook his head. How could he sleep now? Master, we can only rely on you now. Phew, how can we live? As she spoke, she couldn't stop sobbing in a low voice. The most distressing cry would never be a loud wail. Ruan Ruizhong stared blankly and unconsciously clenched his fist. He was still the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. His wife and daughter were being trampled on like this. If he fell, would they still have a way to live? Then I'll have to trouble Madam. Madam Ruan forced a smile. It's not hard. You and daughter are the people that Chia cares about the most. For you, Chia should do anything. Even if I have to risk my life for you, Chia is willing. It was truly sincere. Ruan Ruizhong was incomparably moved. Rest assured, madam. As long as this husband is here, I will never let you. He stopped abruptly. The words that followed were stuck in Ruan Ruizhong's throat. He couldn't spit them out. The greatest damage had already been done. If he said that he would never let them be humiliated, wouldn't that be slapping his own mouth? Chia understands Leoi's meaning. Chia believes in Leoi. That gaze was still unwavering trust and reverence. In fact, Ruan Ruizhong couldn't be blamed for being dazzled by this woman. After 10 to 20 years, that gaze was still the same as before. Any man would be bursting with self-confidence. Although he didn't say anything when he left, one could tell his mentality from his expression. That was the determination and conviction to fight for the most important people. Therefore, Li Hongming and noble consort Su both missed this point. There was a saying that a mother is strong. Then why couldn't there be a saying that a father is strong and a husband is strong? Because they cared too much and had to be strong in order to hold up the sky for them. Probably, in the mother and son's knowledge, there was no such man. Ruan Ruizhong left and walked far away. Madame Ruan's expression faded. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Speak. Who took Miss out? She couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. It was because of the previous matter. She deliberately arranged for people to protect Ruan Fengfei so that not even a drop of water could leak out. Even if there was someone behind the scenes, it was impossible to take down everyone one by one without being discovered. The only possibility was that it was an acquaintance that they all trusted. Ruan Fengfei willingly went with them. Master, it's young master. Ruan Fengfei's wet nurse respectfully said. Impossible. Madame Ruan subconsciously retorted. Her voice was a bit sharp. Then she realized that she had lost her composure and calmed down. I watched Brother Ping grow up. He dotes on Fengfei like she's in the palm of his hand. Are you sure it's him? If it was really him who appeared and lured Fengfei away, she really couldn't blame them for not protecting her well. The wet nurse knew what she meant and couldn't help but frown. Master, this servant didn't find any flaws. I believe that the others are the same as this servant. Otherwise, how could they let him take Miss away? Even if it had been a long time, they didn't suspect anything. Madame Ruan's face was a bit gloomy. She didn't believe that it was her nephew who did it. But because of this, things became more troublesome. The other party's people disguised themselves as people they were familiar with and could do it seamlessly. This meant that the other party might be quite familiar with her and her subordinates. The enemy knew a lot about you, but you knew nothing about the enemy. This feeling was like being played in the palm of one's hand, but one couldn't even touch the edge of the other party. It was terrible. Ruan Fengfei lightly snorted. It seemed that she was about to wake up. You may leave. Check everyone carefully. Yes, master. Madame Ruan originally thought that her daughter would wake up quickly. But when she heard the painful sound coming out of her mouth, as if she was shouting no, her hands unconsciously grasped the bedsheets. Her palms were already scarred, but she didn't feel any pain at all. Her head was slightly shaking. Her face and lips were bloodless. More concentrated beads of sweat. The white cloth covering her forehead was obviously soaked. It was obvious that she had fallen into a nightmare that was hard to wake up from. Feng Fei. Madame Ruan kept patting her face. Wake up, wake up. Ruan Feng Fei slapped the hand on her face away. She sat up and retreated far away. Feng Fei, I'm your mother. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Madame Ruan hurriedly comforted her, but didn't touch her again. She was afraid that it would cause an intense reaction. Mother. Ruan Feng Fei's vision was a bit blurry. Before she could see clearly, she felt dizzy and nauseous. Her body subconsciously leaned forward, lying on the edge of the bed and retching. Her mother hurriedly patted her back. When she calmed down a bit, she poured her a cup of water. After drinking the water, Ruan Feng Fei felt a bit better. She weakly leaned on her mother's body. Feng Fei, tell your mother. What happened? Say it. You'll feel better if you say it. It would have been better if she didn't say it. Once she said it, Ruan Feng Fei immediately went crazy. Wei Nanping, that bastard. He better not let me see him. Otherwise, I'll skin him alive and chop him into minced meat to feed the dogs. Her relationship with her cousin, Wei Nanping, was far more intimate than that of ordinary cousins. Since the age of 13, they had been honest with each other. Other than the bottom line, they had done everything they should and shouldn't do. No matter what, he would listen to her. If she said no, even if the arrow was on the bow, he would stop. In her eyes, he was like a loyal and obedient dog by her side. As long as she gave him a little sweetness, he would do anything for her. Even if she asked him to die once, he would not hesitate to stab himself. However, it was this kind of dog that dared to humiliate her and trample on her last night. Not only him, he brought a group of people. In the dark, she didn't even know how many people there were. Their mouths were full of filthy words. They used the dirtiest and foulest words to humiliate her. They said that she was worse than the lowest and dirtiest prostitute, especially Wei Nanping. He said that those women's bodies might be dirty, but their hearts were at least clean. Unlike her, she was rotten to the core and smelled terrible. All her struggles were to no avail. She couldn't even say a single word from the beginning to the end. The person who made her feel at ease and reliable had dragged her into hell. Even now, when she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel fear. Her body trembled. Her mother hurriedly patted her back to comfort her. Feng Fei, that's not your cousin. Think about how good your cousin is to you. If you lose even a strand of hair, his heart will ache. How could he hurt you? You know the art of disguise. Mother once showed you a human skin mask. Someone must have pretended to be him just to coax you out. Ruan Feng Fei endured the discomfort and tried her best to remain calm. She sat up straight and looked straight at her mother. She revealed a sarcastic and cold smile. Mother, are you saying that I'm stupid? I can't even tell the difference between a person I'm so familiar with and a fake. No, Feng Fei, listen to mother. No one recognized him, so it's not your fault. Not my fault. Why? Could it be that someone thinks that I'm to blame for this? Also, why do you think that those idiots can't tell the difference between the real and the fake? Even I can't tell the difference. How could she be wrong? Who else could be more familiar with that man than her? At that time, she also felt that this wasn't her cousin. Her cousin would never treat her like this. Who are you? Who are you? Who sent you? Who sent you? However, the heart-wrenching pain didn't only come from the body, but also from the heart. It turned out that being bitten by a dog she raised was such a pain. Since that was the case, as long as that face humiliated her, as the owner of that face, she had to be prepared to die without a burial place. It could be seen how conceited and cold Ruan Feng Fei was. Ruan Feng Fei's face was cold and ferocious. Old Madame Ruan was startled. Her daughter seemed to be a little strange. It seemed that it was out of her control. However, she immediately thought of the harm she had suffered. It was probably because of this that she dug a dead end and couldn't think it through. She would slowly enlighten her in the future. Okay. Whatever you say. The next time I see your cousin, mother will help you teach him a lesson. Ha, Ruan Fengfei sneered in her heart. Was she fooling her like a 3-year-old child? Also, cousin, do you know how those girls who were humiliated by you felt? It's like you are now. Experience it well. Who said that this kind of thing could only be experienced by women? Men could also experience it. Mother, do you really think that it's just a lesson? Don't you want to know what happened? I'll tell you bit by bit. Mother, you have to listen carefully and seriously. Ruan Fengfei had her usual gentle and elegant smile. She told her mother the process of her being humiliated by a group of men in the haystack. As she spoke, she couldn't help but giggle. Oh, she thought that she would forget. It turned out that she remembered it so clearly. Even for her at this moment, she felt that her daughter's smile was particularly frightening. Normally, when a girl encountered such a thing, they would not have such a reaction. She was startled. Could it be that the stimulation was too fierce and she lost her mind? Fengfei, don't be like this. Don't scare mother. No matter who it is, mother will avenge you. I'll avenge you. Ruan Fengfei looked at her mother with sparkling eyes. Are you serious? No matter who it is, you'll avenge me. Yes, Madame Ruan said with unusual certainty. Then let me calculate. Ruan Fengfei tilted her head, revealing an unusually innocent expression. Those people last night should all be from this village. Her sand-like rough hands continued. Mother, let's directly slaughter this village. However, before sending them on their way, as long as they are men, first chop off their hands. Then cut off the roots of their descendants. Remember, it's all men. Part of their age. Or you can deal with the younger ones in front of the older ones. That scene must be very interesting. Madame Ruan narrowed her eyes. Then it's Luo Jingwan, that bitch. If it wasn't for her. Ruan Fengfei began to go crazy again with a ferocious face. Okay, what my daughter endured, mother will let her taste 10 times, 100 times. Then it's Li Hongyuan. He lied to everyone. In order to leave a position for that bitch. He used me to eradicate his previous fiancés. Who does he think he is? Does he really think that he can lie to me all the time? Perhaps it was because she really cared that when she saw Li Hongyuan's attitude towards Jingwan, she had a series of unreasonable conjectures. Or perhaps it was just an excuse for herself to be treated coldly. In short, Ruan Fengfei did find some truth. Madame Ruan also thought that she was talking nonsense. This conjecture was absurd, ridiculous, and impossible. It was more reasonable to say that Luo Jingwan attracted Li Hongyuan in some way. Okay, it's his honor that Fengfei likes him. But he doesn't know what's good for him. When the time comes, mother will catch him and let you deal with him. Then in front of him find 10 or 100 men for Luo Jingying. Mother, men are too easy for her. Just use animals. Ruan Fengfei seemed to have thought of that scene and laughed heartily. Madame Ruan touched Ruan Fengfei's hair, but the expression on her face was not so relaxed. The possibility that the enemy in the dark was Li Hongyuan was getting higher and higher. She was in a passive and weak position. It was too difficult to make a move on him. Perhaps the moment she made a move on him, the power she had painstakingly cultivated would be destroyed. Her daughter was very important, but compared to the great cause, forget it. She had to appease her first. And those so-called noble ladies. Who are they? How dare they say that I'm not? Strip them all naked and throw them on the street. Then they will all commit suicide out of shame. As you wish. Then Fengfei, what about Prince Zhong? What happened to him? Ruan Fengfei paused. She didn't know if those people did it on purpose, but in short, her injuries weren't that serious. When the group of beasts had all left, she reluctantly got up and moved step by step. Every step seemed to be able to exhaust all of her strength. Suddenly, she found 2 figures entangled with each other not too far away. It was impossible for her to go back without anyone knowing. The people who schemed against her wouldn't allow it. And Prince Zhong, who swaggered out. As Jin Wang Wang's prospective Sifei, I don't know who defiled me. What does Nyang think of my end? Ordered to become a monk and locked in the family temple. If the situation is better, I will marry far away from the capital and my future is unknown. Or let Li Hongyuan use this as an excuse to kill me directly. Wouldn't it be better to pull someone who just happened to appear and has some status as a scapegoat? As long as I am still in the capital, there is still a chance for revenge, right? Having a Prince Zhong to charge and break through enemy lines for me is also not bad. Although he is a good-for-nothing, he is completely not enough to fill the gaps between Li Hongyuan's teeth. Saying that she schemed against Prince Zhong, she finally sent herself, who was riddled with scars, away. She would not let this old man go. However, he was still useful now. Just wait, she would also turn him into a dog under her. However, with this lesson, she would never be bitten by a dog again. If it tried to bite her, then she would kill it and stew it with dog meat. Madame Ruan was also quite gratified. In that kind of situation, she did not lose her mind and did not lose her sense of propriety. She calmed down and looked for countermeasures. She did not teach her in vain. When comparing two evils, choose the lesser. Irreversible things must be minimized. Feng Fei did a good job. Ruan Fengfei pulled the corners of her mouth. She knew that it was a compliment, but no one would want such a compliment. Listening to it was simply more disgusting than direct sarcasm. Speaking of which, this was not the Ruan family in the capital. The place occupied by the Ruan family's motorcade was only so big. There were also many people coming and going. Even if it was under your eyes, you may not be suspicious. If you met a capable person with particularly good hearing who openly eavesdropped, if he knew that his private words were passed to other people's ears, he would probably only suspect that there was a mole around him and then a ruthless purge. When Li Hongyuan heard the report, An and eunuch Mu wished they could dig a hole and bury themselves. Mother, what were Ruan Fengfei's bones made of? Hadn't she learned enough from the lesson? The idea is not bad. If we don't use it on her, it seems to be unfair to her. They could not hear the change in his mood at all. But because of this, it was even more terrifying. After all, if they showed it, at least they could know how high his anger value was. Perhaps there was a possibility of avoiding danger. But now they did not dare to act rashly. If they were not careful, they would accidentally draw out his anger. They were not the Luo family's third young lady. When the master was angry, he would not care who they were and would die without a burial place. They lowered their heads and did not dare to breathe. Send the heads of the people who massacred the village to Madame Ruan, and then send Ruan Ruizhong's 2 sons to her bed. By the way, tell Uncle Zhong that Ruan Fengfei is already his woman. Although she has to wait until they return to the capital, during this period of time in the summer palace, he does not need to restrain himself. She is just a woman who does not need to spend money and can be played casually. Naturally, the more exciting the better. If I am happy, I may even give him some benefits. Li Hongyuan said lightly. There was no doubt that he was showing his claws and teeth to Madame Ruan. Yes. They packed up and set off again. With the matter of Ruan Fengfei and Prince Zhong, the matter of the 11th prince picking wildflowers was not even worth mentioning. There were even some busybodies who ridiculed the 11th prince for being a playboy. Anyway, they did not feel that he did anything wrong. As for that girl, she did not even look him in the eye. After Jing Wen heard it, she just kept silent. Everyone had their own thoughts and she had no right to ask. She did not know how long that girl could live. After all, she was just a girl from the countryside. In terms of scheming, how could she be compared to the palace maids who could crawl to the side of the princes? However, when the villagers knew that Li Zheng's girl left with the carriages, many of them were so jealous that their eyes turned red. They did not expect that the usually good-natured person would be so calculative. Even if he was Li Zheng, there were still many people who blurted out sour words. Li Zheng, on the other hand, had to suffer in silence. He could only respond with a stiff smile. Perhaps due to his guilty conscience, he unconsciously lowered his head. Well, perhaps some of them were still thinking about last night's delicious taste. Little did they know that a group of hunters who wanted to destroy their entire village was waiting in the dark for today's night. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653171. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile version reading website. Bicken. Chapter 176. After leaving the village, the road had already been paved with the help of some villagers. Therefore, the speed was similar to normal. After making a circle, they finally returned to the main road. After a few hours, Lu Qingdi ordered them to speed up. Even the lunch was hastily prepared. Even the emperor could make do with it. Even if others wanted to complain, they could only hide it in their hearts. No one would be stupid enough to complain at this time. Jing Wan even thought that Lu Chengdi might have been scared by the situation along the way. That was why he was in such a hurry to reach the destination first. In this way, even if they were delayed, they were not much later than the original estimated time. Not to mention the others, even Jing Wan breathed a sigh of relief. To be chosen as the site for the construction of the palace, it definitely had a unique advantage in many aspects. Not to mention other things, after entering the land, she could clearly feel that the temperature had dropped a little. When she finally landed, Jing Wan estimated that the temperature had dropped by at least 5 or 6 degrees. Although this number was not obvious, to be more specific, it was the difference between 37 or 38 degrees and 32 or 33 degrees. The latter would definitely make people feel much more comfortable. Sometimes one could only feel it when they personally experienced it. After getting off the carriage, Sun Yijia could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, we followed. This place is indeed much more comfortable than the capital. When her feet touched the ground, Jingwan took 2 deep breaths. Then she smiled at Sun Yijia. Sister-in-law, quickly go and rest. Don't talk about your sister-in-law. Quickly go and rest yourself, Madame Luo said in a bad mood. Jingwen held Madame Luo's arm and shook it coquettishly. I know, grandmother. Let third brother settle the matters. We all go and rest. Jingwan did not hold back at all and threw her bag to her brother. Luo Jingbua did not mind at all. Little sister is right. Grandmother, you all go and rest. It's not a big deal. I'll take care of it in a while. Originally, he had already sent people over to tidy up the place. He only needed to casually make some arrangements for the housekeeper to be in charge of the allocation and the other servants to be in charge of the arrangement. Another advantage of making arrangements in advance was that everything was done properly. After entering the door, he could take a comfortable bath and relax. Then he could sleep. It wouldn't take too long, even if it was only an hour. After eating something, he would be energized. However, the heavens were not on her side. Just as she was about to step through the door, she was told that Duchess Ding was here. Not to mention Jingwen, most of the people in the Luo family equated Duchess Ding with a troublemaker. After all, they were in-laws. Even if they did not like it, they still had to put on a show. Lord Luo went in, but Madame Luo turned back. Jingwan was a junior, and Sun Yijia and Luo Jingbua were her daughter and son-in-law. It was even more impossible for them to leave. Duke Ding's mansion was directly carried in a sedan chair. When she saw the person who came down from the sedan chair, Jingwan was shocked. Compared with the graceful and dignified Duchess Ding, she was now old and thin. She seemed to have aged more than 10 years. Even her back was a little stooped. She stood trembling slightly and needed someone to support her. She was just an ordinary old woman. If she didn't know her identity, she might not have recognized her when she suddenly saw her. She didn't know if she deliberately showed off something. She was wearing Duchess Ding's clothes, but she didn't know that she couldn't hold up the clothes. It looked a little empty, like a clown who stole other people's clothes. She sighed in her heart and couldn't help but feel less disgusted by her. Jingwon hadn't seen her since she broke off her marriage with Sun Yilin. She was sick, so it was not Jingwon's turn to visit her. Except for her brother and sister-in-law who went back to visit her a few times. Only her mother went to visit her once. However, that time it was probably not a good thing because her mother didn't go for long and she didn't look well when she came back. When Sun Ija asked, her mother just forced a smile and said, "It's nothing. Don't mind it, Sun Ija. After all, she is your mother." Everyone knew that Madame Zhang must have been bullied, but it was better not to mention her character. After Sun Ija married into the Luo family, she got to know her better. Jingwon also told her that she didn't need to treat her as a mother-in-law except for the proper respect. She still needed more people to protect her. However, the backyard of the Luo family should be peaceful now, so she could live her own life. Sun Ija told her directly, "Mother, you don't have to go in the future." Madame Zhang agreed with a hint of joy. Although Jingwon was already used to it, she was still speechless again. Fortunately, Sun Ija didn't say anything to save her face. Otherwise, she might have offended others with her expression. Many people had the same mentality. Even if there was something wrong with their family, they wouldn't want others to agree with them even if they said it out loud. They should listen to the opposite and do a good job of saving face. Of course, if they did this to those who were really close to them, it would hurt their feelings. Sun Ija didn't care. On the contrary, she actually liked people like Madame Zhang. Compared with those who had to beat around the bush, Madame Zhang was simply too cute. When Sister Wan got married in the future, there was no harm in her protecting her for the rest of her life. Along the way, Sun Ija didn't go to see Duchess Ding, but Duchess Ding's temper was getting weirder and weirder. Especially when Sun Yilin was away from the capital for the first time on an errand. Before he left, Duchess Ding made a scene and refused to let him go, as if he would never come back after leaving the capital. However, Sun Yilin was not a good boy. Even if Sun Yilin used the name of being unfilial to bully him, he just sneered. He knew his elder brother's mentality too well. It was nothing more than that he couldn't sit in the position of the heir for a long time. The people who originally relied on him were more and more dissatisfied with him, and Sun Yilin was getting better and better. Now he even went out of the capital on an errand. Sun Yilin had been an official in the imperial court for many years, but unfortunately, he just muddled along. His position was not small, but he had no real power. He could climb to his current position only by relying on the name of Duke Ding's mansion. Therefore, he certainly wanted to stop Sun Yilin. Sun Yilin left very quickly, as if he didn't care that he was unfilial at all. Sun Ija went to see her. 8 out of 10 sentences were about her son. When she wanted to talk about him, Sun Ija ignored her and didn't interrupt. She fulfilled her duty and left. Now she had just settled down. Instead of resting well, she came to the courtyard of the Luo family's summer palace wearing Duchess Ding's dress. What did she want to do this time? Madame Luo was also surprised in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. "What's the matter, in-law?" She went straight to the point, but her tone was calm and not harsh. Duchess Ding acted as if she didn't see her and looked directly at Sun Ija. "Ija, come back with me." Sun Ija was very angry. What did her mother mean? Her in-law's grandmother was talking to her. She was an elder, but she ignored her like this. She didn't even care about the basic etiquette and rules. How could she offend her mother? She even asked her to go home with her mother. Everyone knew that a married daughter's in-law's home was her home. If she went back to her mother's home, she could only be a guest. She was fine on her own. Her mother's words made it sound as if the Luo family had wronged her. "Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? I'm the daughter-in-law of the Luo family. The summer palace of the Luo family is here. Where do you want me to go with you?" "Ija, don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll take care of everything for you." You don't have to be afraid of the Luo family. Sun Ija's face darkened. What was she talking about? Mother, go back quickly. Don't make a scene here. Ija, I know you've been wronged in the Luo family. They despise your disfigurement and are mean to you. They covet your dowry and won't let you go back to see me. They think I can't get up, so they bully and humiliate you. Don't be afraid. I'm here now. What can they do to you? At worst, we can divorce and go home. What's the harm in Ding General Manor taking care of you for the rest of your life? Not to mention the master of the Luo family. Even the servants' faces were livid. Sun Ija was so angry that she cried. How could her mother say such things? Yes, she was born in a prestigious family and was the wife of Ding General Manor. How could she shamelessly fabricate such nonsense? The summer palace was built closely together. The neighbors were all high-ranking officials and nobles. At this moment, they were either settling in or had just arrived. Many people were already craning their necks and pricking their ears to watch the show. If those who didn't know the situation heard these words, they would really think that the Luo family was such a family. Their reputation would be tarnished by her. Sister-in-law, don't cry. Don't be angry. Jingwan was worried about her health and the child in her belly. Ija, don't cry. Don't be afraid. I'll support you. Enough, Sun Ija roared hoarsely. What do you want? What do you want? Am I your daughter? Why are you treating me like this? I'm doing very well in the Luo family. I'm doing much better than before I got married. Divorce. Go back with you. Take care of me for the rest of my life. How much do you hate me so much that you can't bear to see me living well? She was so angry that she felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. The color on her face quickly faded. The masters and servants next to her were shocked. Outsiders didn't know, but they knew that she was pregnant. Originally, the Luo Rongping incident was over, and they were looking for an opportunity to announce the good news. They didn't expect to encounter such a thing. Luo Jinghua hurriedly held her. Ija, are you okay? Don't scare me. Jinghua, my stomach hurts. Sun Ija grabbed him tightly. My child. Mama Gong didn't need to be told. She asked someone to pull Jingwan away and stepped forward to check Sun Ija's pulse. She knew from her expression that the situation was very bad. Third young master, you have to find a doctor quickly to protect the baby otherwise. Doctor, where's the doctor? Which family has a doctor? Hurry up and take a look at my sister-in-law. Jingwan was very anxious. In the blink of an eye. Because of Luo Rongping and because of little Madame Wang, the Luo family's doctor didn't accompany them. How could the onlookers not know what was going on? Obviously the baby was affected. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that Duchess Ding was looking for trouble. This was a good time to curry favor with the Luo family. Needless to say, the family with a doctor quickly called for one. However, Duchess Ding suddenly grabbed Sun Ija. Ija, you're pregnant. How come I don't know? Did the black-hearted Luo family forbid you to go home and report the news? Hurry up and go back with me. Otherwise, you and the baby will be harmed by them. She couldn't even stand steadily. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she couldn't shake her off. The doctor stood aside and couldn't get involved. Let go of me and get out of here immediately. Luo Jinghua was very worried, but he met such a crazy woman. If it weren't for the fact that she was his mother-in-law, he would have already punched her with his clenched fist. His respect for her status had all turned into bubbles at this moment. He even wanted to kill her. The scene was so chaotic, and the servants brought by Duchess Ding were also very regretful. If they had known that things would turn out like this, they wouldn't have dared to bring her here. The people who served her closely were also very worried. If this went on, she would really lose her baby. At that time, the enmity between them would be huge. However, their madam's temper was really too strange now. The people who used to know her best couldn't help her. They were worried that something would happen to her, so they could only persuade her nicely to let go. However, she didn't listen to them at all. She kept shouting, Ija, go back with me. Son Ija's hand had already been pinched by her. Luo Jinghua was no longer polite to her. He directly reached out and pried her hand away. His strength wasn't light at all. Son-in-law, be gentle. Get out of here. Get out of here. This cold and stern reprimand was accompanied by a stick. In the eyes of others, it was old Madam Sun who was impolitely hitting with her cane. The surrounding servants were hit and turned their heads. When they saw that it was their old madam, they immediately shrank their necks and retreated to the side. Duchess Ding's hand happened to be pried open by Luo Jinghua. In fact, it was also thanks to Nanny Gong. She clasped the acupoint on the inner side of Duchess Ding's arm, making Duchess Ding loosen her grip uncontrollably. Nanny Gong then let go at the right time. Old Madam Sun grabbed her hand that was about to scratch Luo Jinghua, threw it away, and slapped her. Duchess Ding, who couldn't even stand steadily, was naturally knocked to the ground. She didn't know whether she was stunned by the slap or for other reasons. In short, she looked at old Madam Sun in a daze. There was a moment of silence. However, old Madam Sun didn't even look at her. "Where's the doctor? Hurry up and take a look at my granddaughter." The doctor on the side hurried forward. After taking her pulse, his heart skipped a beat. It would depend on luck to carry this baby. "Hurry up, carry her into the room. Hurry up and lie down." Luo Jinghua waved away the servant girls and older female servants who came up to help. He directly carried Sun Ijia in his arms and almost trotted to the door. The servants and the doctor hurriedly followed him. Jingwan originally wanted to follow them in, but she couldn't help. On second thought, she immediately asked the servants to take out all the medicine they had prepared in case of an accident. There were some common medicines that could be used to protect the fetus. However, the prescription of a set of herbs might be different for each doctor. Therefore, Jingwan was not at ease. What if they didn't have all the herbs they had? What if they didn't have any with the other families? If they happened to need it, they would be in a hurry to find the medicine and waste time. Thinking about this, she immediately walked to Madame Luo's side and told her her thoughts. Hearing this, old Madame Luo immediately ordered people to do it. This matter actually happened very quickly. The process didn't take long. Luo Peishan sat down and took a sip of tea. When he heard that something had happened outside, he hurriedly came out. When he saw Luo Jinghua's back, he frowned and walked out of the door. When he heard old Madame Luo's words, he said, "When you go to ask for the medicine, tell each family that as long as they share the medicine, regardless of the amount, this old man owes them a favor." A favor from the Minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs was really coveted. Old Madam Sun looked at the Luo family's actions and then looked at her own. She was still her biological mother. How could the difference be so big? "Send your wife back. In the future, without my permission, she is not allowed to take half a step out of the courtyard. And all of you, you know that she is sick, but you still let her do whatever she wants. When you go back, each of you will be flogged 10 times. Old Madam Sun had been in charge of this mess for most of her life and really didn't want to care about it anymore. She originally thought that she could make trouble at home, but who knew that in the blink of an eye, she would cause such a mess. If she hadn't asked one more question and inexplicably put on her clothes when she was about to reach the summer palace, she was worried that she would cause trouble and rushed over to take a look. It didn't matter if she died, but she was afraid that her death would affect the reputation of the Luo family, Ijia and her husband. No matter what the reason was, as long as something happened to her, the Luo family would be in trouble. As old Madam Sun's mother-in-law, it didn't matter how she punished her. Even if she died, it didn't matter if she was accused of forcing her daughter-in-law to commit suicide. Anyway, she was already a person who was buried up to her neck. After dealing with Duke Ding's wife, old Madam Sun walked to the Luo family and said, "In-law, it's my fault. I should have detained her long ago. My daughter-in-law is hysterical. She thinks whatever she thinks all day long and can't listen to others. Don't take what she said to heart. As for Ijia, we all hope that she and the child will be well. Our family is sorry to your family. Old Madam's son couldn't go on. None of the Luo family's great-grandchildren had been born yet. The baby in Ijia's belly was only the second one, so the Luo family naturally valued it. If the baby died, it would not only be the culprit's fault, but also the entire Duke Ding's mansion's fault. Speaking of which, old Madame Luo married before her, but her eldest son was much younger than her. Therefore, she had several great-grandchildren, but her eldest one hadn't been born yet. She didn't know whether it was because she didn't have a child in the early years or because she had difficulty conceiving. Even though old Madame's son spoke kindly, old Madame Luo's expression was still not very good. "In-law, you don't have to say anything. Let's see if Ijia's child can be saved. If the child can be saved, I'll take care of it. Unless her mother dies, I won't let her go back. This happens to be what she wants. Our Luo family won't bear the reputation in vain." Old Madame's son nodded. She has a bunch of people to serve her, so she doesn't need Ijia to do anything. Taking care of the baby is the most important thing. Even if you allow her to go back, I won't allow it. I only have one granddaughter, Ijia, and I'm also waiting to hold my great-grandson. I'll go back first. "In-law, why don't you come in and have a seat?" "No, I just arrived. I have something to do anyway. Besides, Ijia is here, so I won't add to the trouble. I just want to trouble you to tell me about Ijia's situation later. I'll come to see her then. As for the rest, just let her take care of herself and don't think too much. Don't make life difficult for herself and her child because of her mother. If that's the case, then she should completely give up." Although the last sentence was vague, everyone understood what she meant. It was nothing more than telling son Ijia not to count on her mother anymore. If she didn't care about her mother at all and didn't take her seriously, then she wouldn't be sad. "All right, I won't send you off, in-law." Old Madame's son nodded. As she turned around, she glanced at Jingwen and said, "It's our brother Lin's bad luck, but it's only right that he's blessed to have such a mother. Fortunately, Ijia married into your family. I'm content that one of the siblings is blessed. I don't have any regrets in my life." She then turned around and left. Speaking of which, old Madame's son had a lot of children and grandchildren. Moreover, she had 4 generations living under the same roof. However, in Jingwan's eyes, her back looked a little bleak. She heard that recently. She often stayed in the Ding General Manor and didn't go out. She was in a state of old age and loneliness. Obviously, a person like her should be spending time with her grandchildren and enjoying the happiness of a family. The doctor first stabilized son Ijia's fetus with silver needles, and then hurriedly prescribed medicine. It turned out that Jingwan's idea was prescient. The Luo family's medicine was indeed missing one. The servant hurriedly brought it back. After the doctor confirmed it, it was immediately taken away to be boiled. Even so, Jingwan was still cautious and asked Nanny Gong to confirm it again. It was not that she thought that the family who distributed the medicine would do something, but there were too many secrets in the backyard. Jingwan was afraid that the family who distributed the medicine would do something wrong without her knowing. What if it was used on her family by accident? Jingwan had to be careful at this time and couldn't be careless. In this aspect, Nanny Gong was naturally very good at it. Son Ijia's fetus was saved for the time being. However, according to the doctor, it was only temporary. Before the fetus was completely stabilized, if she was a little emotional, she would have a miscarriage. Moreover, it was the kind that could not be saved. She had to be more careful in the future. After all, a lot of blood was seen this time. After sending the doctor away, son Ijia was comforted by the Luo family in turn. In addition to her grandmother's words, she thought about her almost lost child and forced herself to stabilize her emotions. Gradually, she really calmed down. In fact, without her grandmother's words, she had completely given up on her mother. She no longer thought about why her mother became like this today. After all, it couldn't be because of her. In her mother's eyes, she was not that important. At this time, old Madame's son had already learned the whole story from the servants. Every word that Duchess Ding said made her feel a little itchy in the palm of her hand. After all, the slap just now was too light. Listen to what she said. She was actually talking about her own attitude towards her daughter-in-law, wasn't she? Duchess Ding had been married to Duke Ding's mansion for decades. Old Madam Sun might be strict and might have held the power of the inner residence for a long time, but she had never been mean to Duchess Ding, let alone hit her. This time, she was slapped in public in the middle and late years of her life. It could be said that she lost face and couldn't protect her chastity in her later years. There were quite a few people from Duke Ding's mansion who came out this time. There were not many things in the mansion, but there were many idle people. They didn't work, but they had a lot of problems. They couldn't bear the heat or the cold. A thread on their clothes could rub their skin. If the material of the food was slightly inferior, it could defeat their appetite. Sometimes old Madam Sun couldn't help but sneer. If it were up to her, she would tie them all up and starve them for 8 to 10 days. They could even eat tree roots. If they were stripped of their clothes in the middle of winter, not to mention clothes with threads, even withered grass could be wrapped around their bodies. However, old Madam Sun was too lazy to pay attention to them. They were all drunk and couldn't see the decline of Ding General Manor itself. They couldn't see the emperor's dissatisfaction with Ding General Manor. They only saw that there was an empress standing there. They only saw that Prince Kong was the eldest son of the emperor and the legitimate heir to the throne. How ridiculous it was. Just wait and see. There would be a day when they would live on the streets. Of course, this was actually a good thing. When the new emperor ascended the throne, exterminating the whole family and exiling them 3,000 miles away was a joke. If she lived longer, she might be able to live until then. If she lived shorter, she would probably have nothing to do with it. If she lived longer, she would live longer. At this moment, a large number of people were here to laugh at her. They would take the opportunity to seize power and gain some benefits. Otherwise, they would hit her when she was down. Old Madam Sun didn't frown. She just looked at Duke Ding, her eldest son. Her eyes didn't seem to be looking at her son. She said coldly, "You personally send some medicinal materials to the Luo family. I hope you won't be as stupid as your wife." If old Madam Sun really put on airs, not to mention the people of Duke Ding's mansion, even the most senior elders of the entire Sun family had to respect her. The others would be terrified and shrink their heads like quails. Therefore, even Duke Ding had to respectfully respond at this moment. For some reason, Sun Yibin went to the Luo family with Duke Ding. It was Luo Peishan who received them. Luo Jinghua had to accompany his wife at this moment, and didn't have time to pay attention to them. Seeing a pile of things sent over, Luo Peishan laughed. However, his words were full of sarcasm. He scolded people without using any dirty words, which made the father and son blush and smoke coming out of their 7 orifices. However, they couldn't find any words to refute. If you refuted 1 sentence, he could return 10 sentences to you. Moreover, he was in no hurry and was very gentlemanly. If you ignored the content of his words, it would even make people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was not that Duke Ding hadn't seen Luo Peishan's power in the imperial court, but at that time he wasn't targeted at himself, so he didn't have such a deep understanding. Sometimes he listened with relish. Now, in the future, he would no longer laugh at those who were scolded by Luo Peishan until they were speechless. He no longer felt that they were incompetent. No matter how angry he was in his heart, he could only endure it. He couldn't lose his temper. Otherwise he would definitely be kicked out of the house. At that time he would really make a mortal enemy. In the end, he couldn't bear it anymore and asked to leave. However, because he thought of his mother at home, he asked about Sun Ijia's situation. However, the saddest one was probably Sun Yibin. He came with a purpose, but in the end, except for the initial greeting, he didn't say a word. When he came out, his whole face was wooden. It was not his fault. He was not qualified to enter the imperial court and had not seen Luo Peishan's power at all. He went back to report to old Madam Sunday. Old Madam Sun didn't say anything. She glanced at Sun Yibin with a gloomy and angry look. More importantly, he unconsciously drooped his head because of the blow. Old Madam Sun didn't comment. This grandson of hers had a bad heart since he was a child. He didn't walk the right path but walked the crooked path. If he could straighten out his mentality, he wouldn't be like this. Mother, Ijia is pregnant. It's a happy event. Should I send something else? You don't have to worry about that. Do what you need to do. Duke Ding choked and twitched the corners of his mouth. Yes, then I'll take my leave first. As the mainstay of the Empress and Prince Kang's faction, when the Empress and Prince Kong were not around, he should be more active. He must not let the hearts of the people in their faction scatter. He must firmly tie them down. Sun Yibin naturally had to run actively in order to stabilize his position. Because he couldn't even get the position of heir of the Duke, if he wanted others to support him, he naturally had to be more courteous to the wise and spend more money. Of course, it was getting late and they were tired along the way. Everything could only wait until tomorrow. Old Madam Sun, on the other hand, went to see her daughter-in-law, Duchess Ding, after dinner. Everyone around her had been beaten, but because she couldn't leave people around her, they could only serve her with injuries. At this moment, when they saw old Madam Sun, they were like mice seeing a cat. All of you get out. I have something to say to your madam. One by one, they hurriedly squatted down and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Duchess Ding leaned against the big pillow. Her eyes flashed, as if she was considering whether to get up and salute. Old Madam Sun didn't care about it at all. She sat down next to her and said, I know. You always carry the things at the bottom of the box with you. Take them out and give them to Ijia. Consider it your compensation to her. Duchess Ding's lips squirmed, but she didn't say anything. Old Madam Sun was calm and composed. In terms of spirit and appearance, she was even younger than her daughter-in-law now. If you don't take them out, I'll have someone send you back to the capital tomorrow. Course, I'll also bring the divorce letter I wrote to you. Then I'll tell the world about your great achievements. Duchess Ding's pupils shrank. Mother, you actually want to divorce me. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653175. HTML. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Reading Website. Bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.